nutrition and cooking, and that was my biggest class. It taught us healthy in our everyday life to also make extra income or to help other people. In high school, everybody loved each other for who they were. And once I brought back that memory, how it was in high school and how everybody loved me for who I was, not who I looked like, that's when my story kind of started unfolding and my weight loss journey had started helping into the person that I am today. And it feels so good when you get to go out to the community, you get to invite people into and show them what is possible, that they can become the best versions of themselves, they can find anything they want if they're willing to work. When you just find you can become anything by just following the guidelines you learn in school.
So this is my 8th grade art class. They are in the midst of doing a black and white grid drawing. They have chosen a picture. Values. We've just done spheres and shapes. Now they're going to actually do a drawing. You're not actually going to have to draw them.
Plus additional school supplies. Our employees have donated. Boston Whaler matched that. We always deliver them in a vote because vote.
A lot of kids from our are in all these schools and help out in where we can.
Draw very cool with them, and just the need of our community, it helps out so much.
The extra that our community does support work really hard, but there's no way that we can do this without the support of our community. We're just very grateful. We always know they're behind us, so it's a great feeling for us. It's a great feeling for our kids and their families.
Hi, I'm Jenny Enslin, and I'm a virtual teacher. I grew up in Ponce. here, so coming to the lighthouse is always kind of a fun memory. In high school, I didn't really know I was athletic. I did join the track team to do shot put. Years ago, I started having health problems and had a heart ablation, and my cardiologist recommended I exercise for an hour a day. That really kind of catapulted me into racing. I started 5K and 10K. And then I was really excited trying to qualify for Boston. It was extremely emotional. The course, I was dreaming about it for years, and I had some doubts because it was the worst weather they had in 40 years. There was about runners that dropped out with hypothermia, pouring rain. It was sleeting on the way up to the actual race. Having some doubts that I was going to be able to finish was creeping into my mind. But as I got closer to the finish line, it definitely started just getting really emotional that finally was being able to live my dream. One of my teammates, she was only 8, 43. And you know what? She said, sometimes you have to improve. She would tell me sometimes before race, and that really meant a lot. I would pass that on to other students that life can be hard, but you have to do hard things and just keep stepping outside of your comfort zone.
The new school is students and the teachers are loving life. So are all of our stakeholders.
The building is beautiful. The faculty and students are so excited about this new building. It's such an amazing part of the history in this town because this is such a historical school and this is such a monumental thing for this school to be rebuilt right on the same grounds that the old school was.
The library has some awesome and I like how it's a place to that libraries huge and the bookshelves are curved that. Collaborative work a lot of kids sit
One for primary students and one for intermediate students. We have a U-shaped table with chairs around. The taller table have
I love the table. Not only is it a cafeteria, it's also
Pleasure to teach in such a new facility. Everything's clean and brand new. We make new supplies and materials. It's really exciting for teachers and the
It's on. Oh no, you don't.
I'd rather be cold than hot because I can change my coldness. Can't do nothing with hot.
Are we good out there? Okay. As I sink down to the floor.
Get off the floor.
I thought I disappeared.
Very
Yeah.
tall people use this
Oh my
when
God.
we're not here.
This is cool. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Volusia County School District workshop. Today is Tuesday. It's November the 12th. Glad you all are here. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I hope everyone had a nice Veterans Day yesterday as we remembered all of our veterans, and so grateful for the service that they have given our country and continue to give our country. Let me just say for the record, all board members
are here, including our school board attorney, and our superintendent is here as well. And the first item is item 2.01, a review of the legislative platform, which is always exciting, to say the least, and for 1920. And Dr. Amy Hall, are you going to lead us off with this? And I think we have some new people to introduce to the board. Welcome all. And if you just begin always by giving your names and your titles so people listening can understand who you are.
Good morning. I'm Amy Hall. I'm your Director of Student and Government Relations. I am going to apologize in advance. I'm struggling with a cold and a cough, so I apologize if I start coughing through this. But I'm very excited to have two gentlemen up here with me today, Sean Foster and Sam Wagner, and I'm going to introduce them in just a moment. But 3 years ago, I was approached by our superintendent at the time to talk a little bit more about lobbying and talking through those legislative pieces that are coming down from Tallahassee. And so I took on that role as your lobbyist and your government affairs liaison, and I've really enjoyed that role immensely. I've learned a lot through that process, but what I've realized over the last 3 years is Volusia needs a little bit more than what I was being able to give them. So although my role here in Volusia will continue to remain the same in regards to government relations, these two gentlemen here are going to do a lot more of the lobbying piece and what we've been missing in Tallahassee. We went through, at the recommendation of the board, we went through an RFQ process, request for quotes from various lobbyists throughout the state of Florida, and we had quite the list of people interested in advocating for Volusia, which is very impressive. So there was a committee of us that, along with superintendent's cabinet, that went through all the resumes and questions and answers that came down from the RFQ. And after a very long and tedious process, we were able to narrow that down. And these two folks are standing here with me today from Sunrise Consulting Group. This is the group that our group has recommended, and we are bringing forward to you today. Sunrise Consulting Group is owned and operated by our very own Sean Foster. Sean brings a wealth of political and government experience to Sunrise Consulting Group, having worked both inside and outside the state and federal government for over 20 years. Sean has built relationships and gained powerful knowledge to achieve success for his clients. Sam, which is a little bit further to my right, brings aboard. First of all, he's a Florida State fan, so he's already won my vote. So I liked him from the get-go. He brings a broad array of political and government experience to Sunrise Consulting Group. For the past 15 years, he's worked with elected officials at all levels across the state of Florida. That experience has given him a unique insight to the political process and knowledge of public policy. One of the things that I love the most about these two gentlemen is their connection to our district already. They know many of our local delegation members, and they even know a couple of people that inside of Volusia County Schools, which I think will help us a lot. They're very connected inside of Tallahassee, which I think is really important, and that's the piece that I've learned over the last 3 years, the importance of relationships. And those relationships are critical. If you don't have that, if you're not there on a daily or weekly basis, you're missing out. And unfortunately, in my role, we were missing out because I could not be there every single day and week during the legislative process. So that's what Sean and Sam are going to bring for us. So I'm very excited to introduce them today and let them talk a little bit about what they are going to do over the next couple of months as the legislative session ramps up. We are in committee weeks, so a lot of things are already starting. We have started tracking bills, and we are looking to make sure that our voice is heard up in Tallahassee. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sean.
Thank you very much. I will say it was the most thorough RFQ process I'd ever been through on the background checks, which is good. I thought it was a little excessive when you called my mom and my second grade teacher for a referral. But all jokes aside, we're glad we made it through that process, and we hope that you'll be very pleased with us. We think this is just a great opportunity. We represent some school boards, some similar size, and we've been very, very excited about having this opportunity to work with you. And I didn't start off 10, 12 years ago thinking that education would be an expert matter that we would be in, but in the past 5, 6 years, it has definitely gone into that direction, and we've been very fortunate for it. We're going to give you just a small legislative update, and we'll can take some back and forth discussion about it, but we wanted to go through a little bit, just give you an idea how things ended last year. I will have to say, it was the most aggressive, and in 22 years that I've been in the legislature working, that I have seen a governor start off with a very aggressive agenda. I mean, take this into consideration. When he started, he basically had 4 weeks to put together a budget, a proposed budget before, and everything else putting together and all his secretaries, and moving forth in a very aggressive agenda. And I think a lot of us would have to say they did a pretty good job up there this session, and we're looking forward to some very good opportunities this year. One of the things we wanted to say to you real quick is you'll see right there before you, it was a $91 billion budget. Why is that significant? It was the largest amount in the history of the state of Florida, and it didn't even start off that amount. Actually, it started off about $93 billion, his original proposed budget. What they did discover very quickly, though, and you can see many other governments have this type of problem, they didn't have enough in reserves. They literally, when they started off, when the governor took office, enough for 28 days, meaning another hurricane happened, something happened where the expenditures went down very quickly. They had less than 28 days in reserves, and it was one of their priorities to put over $1.2 billion into reserves. So we just want to kind of give that to you in conceptual. Education, as you can see there, $11 billion, at 12% of the state budget, has grown exponentially. And down there, increased education funding, $856,000, 7%. We'll go into a little bit of a breakdown. FEFP that you're probably already familiar with, but just wanted to give it to you real quick. $248 increase. The BSA, $75. Significant for them. Significant for the legislature and what they did. I also and this part's not part of the slide, but let's talk about this, just quickly. Governor DeSantis has made a proposal to increase teacher salaries up to $47,500. I just told you there was a $91 billion budget, so this would be on top of what he had last year to bring all the salaries up to $47,500. We are currently 22nd in the nation when it comes to teacher salaries, starting teaching salaries. That $603 million would put us at second in the nation. I would have to agree, we all have to shake our heads. This is not the best proposal. It didn't come out the best proposal. It would take, as you are already pretty much aware, all new teachers at $47,500. Any veteran teachers who are not at $47,500, it would bring them up to that. And anybody over it, it would not have an impact. But what I would say, as much as it has holes, but at least we're here talking about it this morning. You have a governor that has made a $603 million consideration to increase salaries. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to be the way it's going to end, but some amount of salary, some issue is going to come forth for teachers this year that we haven't had or even had the conversation for the last time. So, again, I sat there and don't think it was the best thought out plan that had come out from the governor's office, but at least it was one that we're discussing and we're going to go forth today. I do have to say this, Sam, you remember there was a couple of proposals. I think this is a $2 billion already increased of what he has last year.
I believe that's correct.
And the first thing the Speaker of the House said, we'll take a $603 million consideration on top of the $2 billion he's already put out there. So why I say kind of tongue-in-cheek is, I say it, the honeymoon is over. The great session that they had last year, you're going to see a little bit more combative issues this year, I would think, and also maybe putting the brakes on some items that he's looking at. We just don't want it to be on education. Real quick on this matter, 3,751 bills filed, almost 3,000 amendments. Only 196 bills passed. It was one of the lowest amount that we had seen in almost 20 years, which is probably a good thing. And it actually updated from this, it's only a few amount of vetoes that the governor had.
And we're actually, so this year, looking at some of those bills too, we're on pace to have even less bills this year. So in the Senate, we're having bills come through and being filed and moving relatively quickly through that process. In the House, you're seeing bills not move relatively quickly at all. They're actually very, very slow on the House end. So we'll see where that goes near the end of session.
I think one of the things you're also seeing is those introduction of train bills where things are getting pushed in together.
Yes. And it's a positive and negative thing. When I say negative, the negative part with trains is an issue that should be debated, gone through committees, and representatives had an opportunity to debate and have amendments added onto it. Doesn't happen with trains, unfortunately. And we're seeing that this session. We're seeing a record low number of bills being filed because there's an excessive. They know if they do a bill and it doesn't even get to its first hearing, it can't be submitted to one of the trains. So they sit back and they look at these and they're like, well, we'll just file it in an amendment because we know the trains are going to come. That's the negative part. And before I end this, we're going to go into the bills here, the last part of the appropriations. Parkland, which was the most transformational that I'd ever seen Tallahassee any time during session, had about a $550 million impact on the budget. Last year's hurricanes had $1.8 billion. Take that into consideration, $1.8 billion. In reality, it's 2% of the budget, but in their general revenue, it's 5% of what they actually controlled. It was quite a big amount.
So what we're going to do in the next couple of slides is we're going to try and give you guys a brief synopsis of what happened last year and some of the big major education policies. These are your trains that we just mentioned. These are the bills that started off as a standalone bill, and then all of a sudden it starts picking up cars for that train as we move along. The first bill we'll discuss, Senate Bill 770, it passed last year. This expanded the Schools of Hope program, and at the end of the day, it allows basically a charter school or private school to open up near traditionally low-performing public school, and that's the gist of the overall bill. And then it eases some of those testing requirements on teacher certifications. Expanding the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act and Commission. So what happened the first year this came out, you guys are aware, we have the Guardian program. What this did is it basically allowed trained teachers to carry a firearm. So before it used to be what's the word for that when you're a teacher? Instructional personnel. It allowed non-instructional personnel to not carry.
Right.
This bill changed that and said, okay, you're instructional personnel, you're now allowed to carry if you all have a Guardian program, and it's set up, and obviously they meet those requirements to become a Guardian. Workforce education. As Sean mentioned, the governor last year, the honeymoon was awesome. And one of the big focuses was CTE, career technical education, workforce development. Because here in Florida, we have the #1 highest rated, for 3 years running, I believe, higher institutions of higher learning in the country, which is great. So we're developing university, but we're not developing workforce. And there's a big breakdown on that. So they attacked it last year, and this is one of the ways that they did it. So they're encouraging middle and high school kids to take basically CTE classes, mathematics, and other types of STEM to advance these career certificates. And at the end of the day, that will provide the workforce we need. Because we all know at the end of the day, not every student needs to have a 4-year university degree, but every child needs to have an opportunity to have some sort of advanced training, whatever that training is. And this is one of the ways that they ended up doing, through technical certifications at the high school and middle school level. So as part of your guys' priorities y'all have this year, one of the things you're looking at is addressing the alternative graduation requirements. So you have some students that are graduating, whether a CTE path or a different type of path that's not a traditional high school diploma. This was an attempt to attack that, to allow kids an opportunity to graduate from high school with an alternative degree other than a high school diploma. The problem we're running into, which we'll see later in your priorities, is that how do we make sure that those kids get the same opportunities, that their diploma is essentially as equal as those who have a CTE graduation requirement or anything else. And that was one of the things they're attempting to do, is expand that.
Before we go to this one real quick, one of the bills that didn't pass and you're going to see come back is going to be expansion of dual enrollment. There were some proposals to drop it from 3.0 down to 2.5. In statute, you already know the tests that they have to pass. Those still would be in there. They originally wanted to expand it and did not want to do the funding. Well, this group quite opposed that. They said they wanted to do it and assess it. One of the things they wanted to do was the materials and others, which they did for homeschool, and there was also a private school. But there's a bill coming up in just a second for this year, and we'll talk about it. Dual enrollment is going to be a big issue this session. It is absolutely a priority for Commissioner Richard Corcoran. Commissioner Corcoran, as you know, that name is obviously quite familiar. He was the Speaker of the House for 2 years. He actually opposed the governor in the primary, and he then came underneath his administration as the Secretary of Education. You have underneath him Jacob Oliva, who had been there for many years, of course, as the Chancellor, his Chief of Staff, a dear friend of mine also, J. Alex Kelly, and his Legislative Affairs Director is Jared. Jared worked with him. I'm from Pasco County. Richard was my state representative from Pasco County. I've known him for quite a long time, and also some of the other folks on there also.
We just want to give you guys a quick breakdown of your House and Senate leadership. Your current Speaker of the House is Representative Oliva out of Miami, and your current President is President Galvano. He's out of Bradenton. And then coming up, your Appropriations Chairs, whom we work directly with throughout the process. If there's any type of appropriation or policy matter that goes through that has an effect on funding, we'll be working directly with Representative Cummings and Rob Bradley, and they both live within 10 minutes of each other.
Correct.
Outside in Clay County. So, and then you go next one. So some of our future leaders that we want to discuss. Sean, I'll let you discuss Sprouls and Simpson, and I'll hit on Renner.
Very close to Chris Sproul. I even put in there. He introduced me to my wife. So we're that close. Sometimes I thank him. Sometimes all jokes aside. I know. My wife's gonna watch this. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, this is live.
But it's actually funny. His sister and my wife are best friends, and we're best friends. And so it's very interesting to have somebody that you're that close to coming in. And again, I've been fortunate. Wilton Simpson is coming into power. He's also from Pasco County. So next year I'll have Wilton Simpson in the Senate, a dear friend, and also Chris Sprouse. I'm very fortunate. Sam is obviously extremely close to Paul Renner also.
So Paul did not introduce me to my wife, but one of the things that we have in common is that his wife's from Colombia, and she became an American citizen. My future wife, she just became a citizen about 2 weeks ago, and they're both, his wife and my wife are very fluent in Spanish. So we met up in Flagler County a couple months ago, and his wife and my wife are just sitting there, going to town in Spanish. And Paul's fluent in Spanish, but he and I are having our own conversation. We're like, okay, this will work. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I would just mention, I mentioned this because there's a great quote: access is different than influence. We can all have access. We can meet somebody but where does the influence come in? Influence comes in where somebody trusts you, has a relationship with you, and that's the basis of lobbying and advocating. And we've been very fortunate with the folks that we're close to who are going to be in positions of leadership, and we believe that's what's going to be benefiting you also.
It's weird. Sean's right. Relationships in this process are paramount to anything else. And I asked another friend who's been lobbying for close to 20 years, much like Sean. I said, hey, what's this part of this process? And he basically told me, look, you got to invest. And he goes, your way of investing your capital is your time. He goes, when you go through their districts, have lunch with them. It's like when you're on the road, give them a call. Mm-hmm. And don't talk about the process so much, talk about their lives. And that investment shows. And then when Paul lost in Jacksonville, and then he moved to Palm Coast. And I was the third call he made. He said, hey, let's go win an election. I mean, that was his thing. Let's go win an election. Okay. But that was that trust in that process. And we just happened to get lucky. I mean, Sean didn't know when he met his wife that, Representative Sprouls was going to be speaker. I didn't know that Paul was going to end up. It's just, we've gotten lucky, but again, those relationships and investment are paramount.
What I would say though is paramount to really tell you is there's a relationship with staff. I mean, if somebody has asked me several times, what is the most difficult part with your job? In a relationship with staff, because we come into this already knowing that you're going to have an 8-year term limit with State House and State Senate. Last week, we just lost a legislative aide for a member that we've worked with for 6 years, and I just felt like I got hit in the stomach. I mean, there was somebody I trusted, I knew I had access to, I had the opportunity to bring items to her and get information, and it's really, that one hurt. I mean, a great example. I mean, we do, every single week, we do rounds, and we put this in our application to you. We visit every single person in our delegation, and I kind of shared a story with Amy just a few minutes ago. Last week, we represent Manatee County, and as we were walking by and we're doing our meetings with our delegation, the staff and the rep came out, one of the reps from Manatee County said, hey, did you know about, what's this other bill that they're asking you to file? I'm like, there's only one bill that they asked to file. What are you talking about? And I said, well, we just got this right here, and I'm like, I don't. And so in other words, we contacted the district immediately. It happened to actually be an employee that had contacted the state rep's office directly and asking them to file a bill, and they thought it was on behalf of the school board. And the reason I mentioned that is because, again, that came from the relationship with the staff, going by and doing our weekly visits with those in the delegation. So.
Just want to give you guys a breakdown on some of your education chairs. Later this week, we'll be meeting with Jennifer Sullivan and her policy team. She's out of Mount Dora. Lake County. So she's in her last term this year. She'll end up, I always think of graduating. She's not going to graduate. She's going to term out. But she'll term out here at the end of session next year going into November. But we'll meet with her staff this year. And then Kelly Stargell, she's got, I believe, 2 or 4 more years left.
Yeah, and then also, here's what's so important. She's the current appropriations chair in the House and the Senate. She will be the appropriations chairman underneath Wilton Simpson next year.
And that goes a long way. And then for your education committee chair over the Senate, Manny Diaz, he was the guru in the House for many years. And then when he got elected in the Senate, he picked up that mantle again. And he's filed close to 7 to 10 different education bills already this year, which is nothing. It's for him, comparatively, that's not a lot of bills. But again, it's all these train type bills that he's getting, these big packages together. But those are some of the folks that we work with in both chambers to continue to push that message of education.
We want to kind of show you kind of key folks within your own delegation, as you see right here, you may not have known, but several of them, we're also missing one person, Education Committee in the Senate. Senator Simmons is on the Education Committee right there, Representative Santiago and Prequay, and then also Representative Federoff.
So just to give you guys a breakdown, your delegation, I'm sure you all are aware, but you've got Representatives Renner, Santiago, Leak, and Federhoff, and then in your Senate you have the Hudson, Simmons, and Senator Wright. So and he just got it.
And Senator Wright, brand new, is going to be running for re-election again. We met with him last week.
Awesome guy.
Yeah.
Oh, so some of your committee weeks in session and where we're at today is a committee day. They are up there in Tallahassee right now, and as soon as we get done, that's where we're heading to next.
Right up there.
And then we have another one in December. That will be the last official committee week before we kick off session January 13th. And then we really start going. I mean, things are beginning to pick up, but session, when they kick off, those first 3 weeks of session are the most not only intense, but you have to stay on top of it. It's productive, and there's going to be a lot of discourse back and forth between, I imagine, from us and the district and Amy. So, and that's when things really, and then from there, it's kind of figuring out where the landmines are and trying to avoid them and figure out how we move forward at the end of the day.
Keep in mind the sessions shift year to year, every other year. So this year it's earlier, so we have a less amount of time to make sure that we have our voice heard. So that's why it's really important to bring them on board early. Last year we started in March, so a little bit later.
Correct.
Every even year, it's constitutional
election
now.
year.
Yep.
Election year.
Every election year now, it'll be early. Every non-election year, it comes in late.
So we're going to start off. Sam, you're going to do the first two, and these are the actual. There's a lot more than this, but these are some that we thought pertain to you, and more that we'll be able to give more updates to Amy.
So as we said earlier, sorry,
Yes.
Sam, their committee weeks have already started. So we are seeing a lot of bills being filed, and we're already in the process of tracking those bills. I'm sending Excel spreadsheets of those bills that Volusia County Schools is tracking, and for our staff to be aware, and so that we can advise this team here, this is how it's going to impact Volusia County Schools from a fiscal standpoint, from a structural standpoint, so that we can have our voice heard before it starts to go through these committees and potentially become, potentially for it to pass and maybe not be something we're looking for.
So as we discussed a lot of the bills that passed last year, these are the bills that we're looking at this year. Like Sean said, they're pertinent to the district, but they also have a big picture moving forward what the idea might be. So the first one we'll discuss is 534. It's filed by Senator Diaz. There's no sponsor in the House yet. There will be, we anticipate. But basically what this bill does, it requires that the Department of Education maintain a non-qualified persons list. So any person who's a non-certified employee of the district, if they do something that basically endangers the welfare of a child or a student, that they maintain a list of that individual and why they're let go. So that if they leave Volusia and say they go down to Brevard, they want to know and have that opportunity to see why that individual was let go. So there's some parity and transparency between districts about where employees go.
And we tell you just the significance of Senator Diaz again. A few years ago, we had Senator John Legg. He was the mantle for education. He would file the bills. There was a bill that was filed over in the House that had to do expanding ASN degrees, Associations of Nursing, for tech centers, which is not currently available. And it was filed by a representative considering it, but then he found out that Senator Diaz had just filed the bill, and his eyes lit up, like, okay, well then, this has got legs and some possibilities. So anytime you see something that's got Senator Diaz on it, it's gotten some leadership behind it also. This is a leadership-driven process.
So HJR, which is House Joint Resolution 157, Representative Sabatini, he's from, I believe it's Howey in the Hills, from Lake County, but he filed this bill last year. And basically what it does is it wants to limit y'all to 8 years at a local level. You can serve 8 years consecutive, however that breaks down, which in Florida is 4 years per person. So you get to serve 2 terms, and they want to cut you off, and that's essentially it.
This bill was around last year. It was around before that. They don't pull in county commissioners. They don't pull in constitutional officers. They're just, I hate to say, picking on school board members.
Yeah, and there's also going to be, there will be a bill filed by, we believe it's Representative Fisher. It'll be addressing superintendents, making superintendents, I always get it confused, appointed or elected,
appointed.
It's appointed.
Yeah,
so it's mandatory making them appointed only.
The next one there is this goes to that, I was just talking about the dual enrollment. This is a good example. They want to expand dual enrollment to private schools. There is currently $16 million. It's considered a scholarship. There's 2 allotments, one for $550,000 for homeschool, and the Department of Education's proposed budget. The Department of Education is the only budget out right now from the governor that's a proposal before session, and here we just showed you how quickly we're getting ready to be there. But there's also $16 million. So let me tell you why that's significant. Within that proposal, they want to help pay for summer school, which is not currently obviously available and offered. All students, and then also private and home. I had previously mentioned to you that 2.5 to 3.0. If it is dropped down to 2.5, the $16 million will fall far from what is necessary on that amount. But again, this is going back to the Commissioner of Education. He has made it a high priority to make it available to board members. To students. And he's also had some issues to where state colleges have said that the students have to come to their campus and not do it in the schools. And he has literally even considered saying, well, if the state colleges, which is a couple that have done it around the state, then he is considering legislation to force them to pay for the transportation to get the students to the state college. That is how adamant he is about making dual enrollment available.
This is definitely one for us to watch. Currently, we are paying for our students during the summer that are attending dual enrollment classes, and we have a large number of students that do partake in that. So that's something we need to watch. But if there's change, we do offer dual enrollment classes inside of our schools. And so if this bill comes to fruition, that's one that we may have to kind of take a look at of how are we going to make sure that these students are still afforded the opportunity to do dual enrollment. Oh, I'm not sure what's happening.
That's okay. We have two other bills we'll do real quick for you while they're bringing it back. Senate Bill 632.
So this is filed by Senator Stewart. Basically what she's trying to do is there's a lot of, I would say consternation is probably the appropriate word, between traditional public schools and your charter and your privates. And what she's trying to do is bring a little bit more accountability to the charter and the private school system by showing of school grades and making sure their construction is up to the same level at the public school level. She wants to ensure that they're meeting that same standard for both the charters and your private schools. And then obviously she wants to have a school grade. She wants to know that if you're at DeLand Middle School, she wants to know that the same grade is being afforded, that what they get at the Department of Education level, that they can also get both a private and a charter school has a grade as well. So parents have full transparency about what their kids are getting into.
Mm-hmm.
The last bill that we're going to talk about real quick is House Joint Resolution 477. What this does is kind of taking into consideration those who do the millage rate increases, what the state statute allows. Last year they said that anything to do with the half-cent sales tax that school boards are able to pass has to go on a November ballot. Before, you remember there was different times. You could do in the primary, you could do in March and special elections. The legislature said no, all those would be in November. They basically want to make the same thing with the millage rates for cities and counties and schools to do. And again, part of it was to talk about the governor's budget, which we talked about. The commissioner has put $100 million into the mental health spending, which I know Amy is very, very happy about. An additional $1.4 million, we just tell you to install school resource officers at every school, which obviously falls quite short. And I added in there already the $60 million with dual enrollment that we talked about. On the last sheet, you have your Volusia County, and you are already aware of the delegation, what you guys have put together for your priorities. But we just want to kind of give you a real quick, and any questions, what we do. So every week, there's a group that you may or may not be familiar with. I know you guys go to the Florida School Board Associations. You may have heard a presentation by FEL. FEL is the Florida Educational Legislative Liaisons. We are both members. We both participate every single week. What this group does in FEL is it takes all the internal government relations, all the externals, us, and puts us in one room every single week. So we talk about issues, we talk about strategies, amendments. Those are the
relationships.
Relationships. We come back and we tell Amy, they've asked us to get, what's this cost of this going to be for you? You know, if the impact is, what's it cost to, to cover the summer school for dual enrollment? We would come back to you with those type of questions, so we would be prepared to go talk to the legislators.
A prime example of one of the things that they have worked on this year is the governor said, hey, we want to do a $603 million request for teacher salaries. Well, FEL got together and started organizing district salaries,
right,
going from entry level to the median to the highest earners. And that was one of the things that FEL helped work on to help produce that for the governor's office.
Like I told you, I think one of the things that we continue to do is we do our weekly walk-arounds to the delegation meetings. We're speaking to all the staff and committee staff and getting back with you. We do updates during committee weeks and sometimes even daily on pertinent issues that could be there, and representing you when an amendment or a bill comes before the committee. And the last one, and of course, participating with the Florida School Board Association, which I think I met some of you all last year or last time.
So a couple of things that we want to track for you guys this year, obviously. One of your big things is the district cost differential. This is huge. Just to give you guys a breakdown, there's 67 counties in Florida. Only 11 counties actually benefit from it. And I'll just give you a hint. They basically go from Palm Beach, and they circle around the tip of the Florida, and they go back up towards Fort Myers and Collier. Those are basically the 11 counties, just to give you a breakdown. And those are the 11 richest counties in Florida, and they all benefit from the DCD. Now, Volusia is the poster child for the person who does not benefit from DCD. So we're meeting this week, at the end of the week, Thursday, to meet and discuss with the education staff in the House about either some form of abolishing the DCD or some sort of reform. And we've got a couple ideas now. We're going to do that. We're going to keep that close to the vest for now. But we're going to work on it with them and see what we can do. With Sean's relationship with the commissioner and our relationship with staff, we're really going to push an idea to do some sort of reform to the DCD, because it's not fair. It's not fair that 55 school districts in the state of Florida do not benefit, but yet they pay into the tax structure in the system. That's exactly what happens. Another thing we're going to be working on is the required local effort. So I was working with, we were trying to explain this. So basically what happens is, I mean, y'all know that you pay $100 in taxes every year. Let's just keep it simple, because I did go to Florida State, so math isn't exactly my forte. And I studied poli-sci and history, non-mathematical subjects. But let's just keep it at $100. So if you pay $100 every year, and the state says, well, you know what, we can get the same by taxing you at $90, there's a $10 difference right there. So what happens is the state comes back and says, hey, we lowered your local taxes. Isn't that great? Look what we did for you. But the district on the other end says, well, now we've got to make up $10. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to work and figure out a way, again, from a reform perspective, how do we address the RLE? Because at the end of the day, every time they lower and they do that, quote, rollback rate, that's great for talking points when you're talking to the district, but at the end of the day, the district has to make up those dollars. And that's another thing we're working on, either to maintain it or some way to make it a little bit more equity between the districts. Oh, and you want to talk about mental health, or you want me to do it? Oh,
go ahead.
No,
and then
Dr.
I'm sure
Hall,
I'll
please.
jump in.
I don't have doctor in front of my name, so.
Of course, you all saw the legislative priorities that we are pushing here in Volusia, and mental health remains the forefront of those legislative priorities. So, of course, coming from my office, that is one that we're really making sure that we advocate for. We are doing an exorbitant amount of threat assessments on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and so the need for mental health services for our students is great. And although our legislators are finally doing the right thing and providing us with funding for mental health, we need more. Not only in schools, but in our community. Our community agencies are really struggling. So when we are out there advocating for mental health allocation, we're going to be advocating not only for our school district, which we definitely need additional funding to help make sure we have reducing the number of school counselors to student ratio, reducing school psychologists to student ratios, and social workers. All those are very, very important. We also need to communicate and advocate for our community, because there's only so much we could do at the school level, and there's only so many hours of the day, and our students and our families need additional resources that are in the community, and right now they're struggling as well. So this will be something that we really continue to advocate for.
So one of the things that Amy's discussing is a huge point. As part of the commissioner's recommendations, he did request $100 million for additional mental health. Now, what that means at the end of the day, we don't entirely know yet, but the fact that they recognize it at the highest levels of government is I don't know how to explain it, but it's awesome. Because that means that we can figure out from a legislative standpoint how we move forward and how we make sure that districts not only get the help they need, but the students ultimately are the ones getting the help that they need.
And then, of course, there will be anything that is the pleasure of the board that you feel are topics that need to be addressed. Absolutely, that will be on their priority list as well. So we're super excited to bring them forward today, because I think they're going to do an amazing job here in Volusia and really advocate for our students and our families, and for our board, on behalf of our board and our staff. Do you have any questions about these gentlemen?
Well, we may have a couple. So
Okay.
I want to say, first of all, welcome. Thank you for the nice presentation. Glad you're with us. The way I understand it, then you all will be the ones in Tallahassee, of course, and Amy will be here.
Yes, sir.
And then when you have questions related to a certain bill and how it may affect Volusia, then Amy will be your contact. and you could pick up the cell phone and call her, and she will stop whatever she's doing at that moment.
Of course.
And get right back to them.
We will still do that. I will still stay very connected with our local delegation. That's really important, going back to those relationships and making sure we still have those connections there. And from time to time, I may come to Tallahassee if there's an important topic, but they will definitely be our boots on the ground there, which is what we were missing. And then, of course, if they have questions or they're bringing information forward, they will go through me, and then I will go ahead and farm that out to whatever staff need to weigh in on those issues.
Great. Well, since you know the lay of the land up there so well, and we're in one of those years where the governor doesn't have to run for re-election, but everyone in the House does, correct?
Yes,
Right.
and half the Senate.
Yep.
And half the Senate, and then there are many people in the House that are, this is their last year.
Correct.
Being termed out.
I think we have 18 members.
18 of the House
that are
will be
terming out.
termed, 18 of the 120.
Yes, sir.
So that's not too many. But still, it's that year where the governor can go out there and say whatever he would like to say, and such as raising the base teach salary to $47,500. And then if you're a member of the House and you're running for re-election, you're saying, well, that sounds good, as long as I don't have to raise taxes so that I can go on the campaign trail again and say I didn't raise your taxes. So I mean, this is this is what you face up in Tallahassee, and so my first question to you, and then I'll certainly ask board members, is that we had heard last year that they had funded, they had allocated $100,000 to do another DCD study, and that study was going to be conducted through the Office of Economic and Demographic Research, of which Amy Baker is the leader, and then she passed it off to Pam Shanker to head up that study. And then we heard that the study was going to be rolled out on October the 1st, and then when October 1st came and, has come and gone, then we heard it's going to come out November 1st. Well, November 1st has come and gone, and now the last thing I heard, which was Friday, was that they're just not sure when they're going to put that study out. So that tells me that the study has come out and it's been shown to a few people, and they don't like what they've seen so far, so they told them to redo it probably. And I had a conversation with Commissioner Corcoran a couple of months ago, and I asked him about the study, and he was vague, and he said, well, we're just going to have to wait and see. But he said, as you know, as you pointed out, most of the legislators live in Dade County and Broward County and Palm Beach County and so forth. So whatever that study is or wherever it comes out, they are going to protect their interest. So we have been struggling with this for so long, and it's what I'm hearing from our delegation is that it's not so much that we object to Dade County and Broward County getting more, because if the cost of living is higher there, then we kind of get that. It's just that why should it come from us? You know what I'm saying? It's just like why are you taking it from some of the poorest counties to give it to some of the richest counties? So what we're saying, what we're trying to get to the point is, if the base allocation is $5,000, let's say, then don't give us 97% of that. Give us whatever the state says the base allocation should be.
Sure.
And then if the state needs to allocate more to Dade County and to Palm Beach County, that's fine. But whatever the main allocation was supposed to be, give it to us, dollar for dollar, so that the students in Volusia County and all the other counties that don't receive the benefit can have the money to implement their educational programs like every other county in the state. So I just wanted to make you aware what I've been told through the last couple of months, and maybe through your resources, because you're more connected than I, that you could find out where this might be headed, and if there's anything we can do to help that process, to let us know. I just want to say one more thing, and I'll open it up to the board, and that is we have a lot of partners here in Volusia County. Our chambers of commerce have been very helpful. They are up there in Tallahassee all the time lobbying, so I got
a call from one of them yesterday.
Good. And Amy Hull can connect you to all of those, but there are a lot of people now who perhaps 4 or 6 years ago weren't so much with us, but they understand the issues now too, and particularly as it relates to just the shortage of teachers and the necessity to raise teacher salaries. That's just critical. And it appears from everything that I've heard that the governor is going to move away from all the bonus programs and use that $300 million toward the $600 million to fund the base salary allocation. I'll stop and I'll let you react to what I just said, because if I'm off point somewhere, tell me.
Listen, it's refreshing to hear the Chamber of Commerce's and others working with you diligently about this. I mean, they understand the importance of education. Mr. Cameron, yes, had already called me late last evening.
You will always remember his voice.
Yes, you will. I got that. I have a conversation with him today. I will tell you, finding out about that study will be our priority, and getting the information for you on that. And we'll contact, either the commissioner or Jacob will leave it for you. My first thing is, it's typical government up there. October 1st, November 1st, December 1st on the study. It's not uncommon. But this is the type of information they need to have to them. I always hear from the commissioner, and this is what I'll use with them. I always hear from them, data. Well, we're waiting for that data. You want to make some decisions, make them data-driven. So let's talk about the study and get those results. So that'll be an absolute priority for us.
We'll figure out where it originated, and then we'll figure out who's supposed to produce it. And then,
we know who's supposed to produce it. We need to get it out of their hands. Yeah. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Questions? Ms. Cuthbert, you can.
If you would like to know some of our priorities, one additional one that I think is extremely important that Dr. Hall and I have worked on is alternative pathways to graduation. I saw it on there, but we have discussed it with our local representatives. Not much has been done because our students, we had a little over 200 students graduate
about
last year.
230 received a certificate of completion.
And that does not help our students because they can't get into the military, they can't get a loan to go ahead and get an associate's degree from Daytona State. So what that might do, it could help perpetuate our lower income level of economics here in this county. And so we want to be able to fund and help those students if they cannot pass an FSA. What can we do to help them pass it? It would be nice if they could have a digital tool certificate, anything in CTE. Yeah, and there has to be better pathways because if they're the education department, then they have to dwell on the education of all of our students, even those students who are not as easily able to pass a standardized state test.
Yes, ma'am.
So
we've spoken at great length about this. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. Travis Hudson filed a bill last year that was really on point of what we were looking for. Unfortunately, as it went through committee stops, it did change, and we kind of got something a little bit different, not really meeting the needs that we're hoping for. So that'll be something that we continue to champion, and making sure that our legislators understand what we're looking for, and the impact to our students, and really economically throughout our communities, what these certificates of completions mean for these students.
I mean,
so,
not being able to apply for
financial aid.
Right.
I mean, that's tough. So you just now have economically divided students between the haves and the have-nots. And I think as we sit and we talk with our local delegation, and really delegations across the state of Florida, because this is not just to Volusia, this is to across the state, that we really have to figure out an alternative pathway for these kids that are just not test takers, but have been able to excel in so many other aspects of their life. And academically, they've checked all the boxes for graduation, but they haven't been able to pass those standardized tests. And now they are sentenced to a life of $10 an hour, because they can't further their careers unless they have money, somebody financially backing them, so they can get those degrees. And that's really, really important. It's important not only for school systems to lobby, but our businesses, our communities, because it really does impact us. So this is the nice part, is that as these gentlemen are up in Tallahassee and they're talking with FEL, the local, other local delegation, other local lobbyists, this is when we can all get on the same bandwagon together and say, we've got to do what's right for kids here, because we're hurting them, we're hurting our community. And that's not something I was able to bring, but they are going to be able to bring that.
Dr. Hall-Trust, she touched right on it. It's basically what it comes down to at the end of the day, is workforce development. If you don't have it.
So we're allowed through FEL to add things to their agenda. This is going to be one of the items next week, just to let you know, because it was amazing already some of the conversations we've had with legislators. When we made that point right there that they were not applicable for financial aid, it all of a sudden connected. You know, you could talk certificates and everything else, but when you couldn't talk on continuing their education and having, you know what I mean, that it's just unfair.
Yeah,
it needs to be corrected.
When you dash hope and to make yourself more knowledgeable,
yes, ma'am,
then we start perpetuating that same old in our county. We want to raise our economic levels and raise our level of education, and we can't do it without assistance from them. And I think a lot of people in our county don't realize that.
They don't.
They have no idea, so we need to publicize that as well.
Your legislators don't realize
Yes, and I'm glad we have a Volusia County Council member back there to hear all this. So
that's good.
Yes, and how differently we are funded as the county is not funded. And my other one is just for the record, I'm against terming school board years of service.
Absolutely understand and agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. Mr. Cologne.
And so first of all, I want to thank you for being here at such a time as this. I think that last session, you know, after speaking to our delegation, we kind of turned the corner, and now we're ready to dash. It's amazing that 196 bills passed both chambers, and our 2 appropriations bills actually passed both chambers and ended up getting vetoed by the governor. So when you think of that, you know, that was due to the hard fight of our local delegation. One of the bills, and again, it's unfortunate, I know they were trying to build those reserves, but it's unfortunate that, you know, the House had partially funded it, and then all of a sudden, you know, our guys went out and rallied and got it fully funded. So I think, you know, I'm glad you guys are on our team, and we're going to make, you know, strides, I think, at this point, at such a time as this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I will just follow, just to let you know, we didn't put this in the presentation, but this year's going to be a little even tougher in the budget. So they do state revenue estimating conference committees, and it's already $500 million going to be unavailable this year compared to last year, and already $500 million for next year. So they do it 2 years out. Just kind of puts us in notice that sales tax has started to slow down. I do expect that to go up a little bit with all the hurricane. When you see a $1.8 billion spent over there in the Panhandle, it'll go up, but it'll be leveling back down again quickly. So,
our superintendent has a comment.
Just a couple. I wanted to talk to you about process this a little bit. I was urged to very carefully vet this because it was a major investment, and we wanted to do it as right as we could. So I had contacted several state agencies and groups, talked to individuals about what questions they would ask, what they would look for in a lobbyist or a government representative consultation firm. And the advice I received was that in some cases, you can go too big with organizations that have much larger clients, and thus those clients tend to dominate all their activities. And so we tried to sort that out when we went through the vetting process. In other instances, they warned that you might get someone who has access, but when they get access, they don't know what to do after they see the person. In other words, they may not be expert enough or be a policy wonk to where they know how to guide once they get in the room. And then vice versa, you have someone who's expert on policy, but is terrible with relationships and doesn't have any influence. So we sorted through all that, and then I'd have to call it an interrogation that, they referenced earlier. I had them walk through examples of where they had, in effect, gone the full process, whereby you took something, nurtured it, grew it, got the access, knew enough about it to push it through, and it came to fruition in law. So this afternoon, you'll have the opportunity to vote on this firm as in the consent agenda, unless you decide to pull it from the consent agenda because there's something you didn't like here today. I did want to add that they were also low bid and that the contract is for a year. So if they don't like us or they don't perform to your satisfaction, it's only a one-year contract. Just wanted you to know that for consideration this afternoon. We're not voting on anything this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any other comments, Ms. Wright?
Just based on the second attachment, so our two main focus will be funding and accountability reform, funding reform and accountability reform.
Inside of that, though, in accountability, you're going to find things like graduation pathways. You're going to find charter schools involved in that. You're going to find ESOL, where we're looking for our assessments to be given in the student's native language. So accountability kind of sounds broad, it sounds more math-like, but it really expands across multiple layers.
To address two of those issues, Ms. Wright, so issue number 2, I believe it was, is the accountability. So the commissioner himself came out and said, gosh, maybe July, back in August, he says, hey, look, he's like, we want to expand charter schools. I mean, he was just really open and honest about it. We want to expand charter schools. But he also said, he goes, look, we also need to have more accountability with them as well. So he came out and flat out said it. We need to have more accountability between traditional public and charter. And addressing the third issue, which was, Lord have mercy, I'm sorry.
Our testing.
The ESOLs. So there's a bill that's actually been filed and has a sponsor, which allows it to be tested in a native language. It's not even Spanish. It's not even maybe Haitian or whatever. It's all languages. So if you're an individual who has been, say your native language is whatever they speak in India, Indian, then you can take that exam. They're going to produce it for you in that bill. So we'll see where that bill goes. We're tracking that. But when we saw your priorities, we were immediately on it. It was one of the bills that was filed.
I will tell you that our legislative priorities have not changed much over the last couple of years, and part of that is very strategic, because I believe that you can fight a fight for a year and then it kind of falls on deaf ears. But if you continuously say the same thing over and over and over, they either get tired of you and they finally listen, or they say, you know what, there's some validity here and we need to go ahead and respond. And I think that's what's starting to happen, because many of our legislative priorities have a bill that's filed this year that speaks to it. And that's the first time in a very long time, and that is very strategic on our part. We have partnered with other districts so that some of our legislative priorities are similar. So I think we're going to see some movement on our legislative priorities, which is going to be the first time in a very long time.
And that's not unusual in the legislative process. It takes 3 to 5 years generally for an issue, a policy to pass. Very rarely, does something come up, especially that's transformational, that passes in the first year. DCD.
Ms. Haynes, did you have anything you wanted to add?
So last year there was, and it didn't go anywhere, there was a piece about changing the transportation from 2-mile radius to 1.5-mile radius. I was kind of hoping that would be on here, just simply because, especially with elementary children, it's to expect 5 and 6 year olds, and unfortunately we live in a time now where it's not necessarily safe for them to walk alone to school, and we also have parents that have jobs that are not available to have them walk and everything. So I was just, and I know that, you know, that no one else may agree with me on that, but making sure our kids get to school safely and get home safely has always been a priority for me.
We did a cost analysis on that bill when it first came up, and it was going to be a substantial financial impact to our district. So I absolutely agree that making sure we have safe pathways to school is vital and critical, and that really does impact attendance, our attendance rates, the way students get to school. But I think our legislators have to adequately fund that and provide that funding so that we can offer that opportunity to our families.
Yeah, I'm not looking for another unfit funding.
Absolutely not, yeah. There's a lot of those floating around.
But there's also things in that you can change that we've looked at, and there's some efficiencies, you know, that they're rated on. Within even that one funding, there, you know, if you have 2 people, 3 people in the seat, there is some even ways that if you put 3 people on there within 2 miles, you get less. I mean, and so that is something they are looking at it this year. So there could be some things that could at least benefit you on the way that you get that funding in the end. I agree. Even going down to 1.5 mile, I think there should be some flexibilities for the school boards, especially when it comes to student safety. You know, getting across a 2, 4, 6 lane road. You know,
and there's not always a sidewalk either. That's the other end of it. They're thinking, well, if we can't drop it to 2, what can we do to expand sidewalks? And it's like, it's chicken or egg. Well, how do we handle it from a funding perspective?
And we put safety patrols out for the elementary, but we don't put safety patrols out for middle and high. So then we have middle and high students that are crossing, and you want to believe, okay, well, they're older, they'll pay attention. No, they've got their earbuds in and their phone, and they're wet. So, but thank you.
But we hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Has there been any talk recently about doing anything with pre-K, VPK, expanding it? There was talk, seemed like 4 or 5 months ago, and then that's kind of fizzled away, so I didn't know what you've heard.
It has. We haven't seen a bill yet on it, or I didn't see funding yet in the governor's budget. That's not to say, remember, that's not to say it couldn't come forth afterwards. There were some saying that they felt that the pre-K teachers don't get the bonuses, that there should be some changes in that. That has been a discussion in the past 2 sessions, so that's been one of the items I would, if you see come up within this, you know, proposal that the governor has, I think you may see some items, issues with their funding too, or bonuses, I should say.
We've been speaking very closely with DJ Lebo with the Early Learning Coalition, and they have been, I know on their lobbying platform, that's one of the pieces that they are going to be pushing. So I know it's happening, and they're pushing, and of course we're in support of that as well.
Yeah, as you know, I think there are 44 states that provide pre-K, and I think we rank we're like 41st out of the 44, 40. I mean, we just funding, we just don't fund it at all. And I think we're down to around 2,000 a child in funding pre-K. It's just terrible, and we don't require teachers to be certified, and you know, it's just turned into like a babysitting service for about 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. It's just terrible. Anyway, the other thing is you mentioned that the base salary in Florida is currently, you know, ranked 22nd.
Sorry, starting salary.
Starting salary, but the average salary, you know, we're 48th.
Right.
So here we are, the 3rd largest state, and where average teacher salary is ranked 48th.
Correct.
You know, and that was, you know, those are things that they don't like to hear, but those are things I start out with, because you got to remind them that you're not up there just asking for money, you're always asking for money. You say, you know, you want data to drive your decisions? Well, how about this one, you know? We're 48th in average teacher salaries, and we're the 3rd largest state.
Right.
So make that work for me.
I agree.
You know, and so the governor, you know, to his credit, he's saying, well, you know, it'd be nice to be in the top 5 with something related to education. So, you know, that's why he's doing that. But then we know all the problems related to that later on, too.
Yes, sir.
But just wanted to get that out there. Ms. Cuthbert, you have a follow-up?
Just very quickly, just to add to what he had to say. He and I and Mr. Egner were at a meeting when Joseph Oliva spoke last month at the Florida Consortium of Support Education. Now, the data he talked about was our increased graduation rates, how many more students are taking AP courses, talked about workforce education, all the positives. But what makes all that work? It's our staffs, our teachers, our support groups, it's our school districts that create that data. And mostly it's our students who work themselves to death. So if you want evidence that people are deserving of a pay raise, that's it. Because we have elevated Florida's status, but they're not looking at the data that they need to look at.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Persis, can I go back to something that you mentioned about asking for money? This year, we do not have any appropriations requests coming forward from Volusia County. And part of that is because we are going through a reorganization. We have new leadership coming in. So a lot of change. And so we really were not in a position to advocate for additional appropriations. However, over the last couple of years, we had two appropriations requests this past legislative session, and then we had two the previous one. And that's really been the first time in a very long time that Volusia has asked for appropriations. So that's going to be an area of focus for us, is making sure that as we see programs that we want to bring to Volusia, as we see needs that go beyond what are being funded for, we're going to work with these two gentlemen to make sure we have those appropriation requests going forward, and then they're going to help advocate for us up there for those.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to say that we are asking Volusia County. I just mean we education, K-12, we're always asking for more money because we want our base student allocation can go up so we can pay our teachers more, so that we won't start the year in the state of Florida with 3,500 vacancies. That's what got the governor's attention. And so we don't want to, in Volusia County, start the school year with 100 teaching vacancies. You know, we have teaching vacancies now, and we have teachers that are leaving. And I just think that the legislatures need to know that we cannot attract people to attend college, to get a degree in education anymore, because they don't see a career path in education that will get them to a $50,000, $55,000 salary within 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's just like, our starting salaries under 40. And so you can go to college and start out with much higher salaries than that, and then make a much higher salary 10 years down the road. So yeah, I mean, if we're wanting to improve the education system, we got to get the best qualified, certified people in front of those students in every classroom. And in order to do that, guess what? We got to pay them. I mean, you just have to pay people to get the best people, and to keep them here. And I can say it to you guys because we're all on the same team. But I'm just saying that we got to keep pounding that message to everybody up there. It's not that we just want money just for money's sake. It's that we really have a problem finding teachers, and it's just going to get worse.
It has to. Well, I just want to say again, thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to come meet with you. I think we've got some great opportunities. We look forward to, if you all choose, coming up at the next meeting to let us work with you and work with Dr. Hall. We'll hopefully have some good results. And what we'll do also, we propose during session, you'll hear from us, not just a report. We'd like to come meet with you again, give you an update during session, and of course we'll do something after session. So you'll see us continually.
Oh, that sounds great. And before you all go, I just want to thank Amy Hall for all the work that she's done. I don't know whether you two gentlemen know this, but she wears about 17 hats here. And this legislative 18. One, 18, Mr. Colon just corrected me. So, she just does a great job here, and she keeps those relationships strong with our local delegation. But we are happy to have you both. And we're looking forward to this session.
Yes, thank you. Sure. And just on a side note, next Wednesday is the local delegation meeting. So these gentlemen will be here representing us, along with Mr. Egner and myself. So we'll be there advocating on behalf of our students. So
great.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll need it.
You guys want a break, or you want to just keep on going?
Maybe break after.
A break
Ms.
after the
how
next
about
one?
you? Okay.
All right. Check with Connie. So what do we have here? Kelly? Kelly, Census. I see we have our We have our mugs here. Marketing's everything, right?
There you go.
Council Member Gertman's here. Are you the Volusia County Council? Oh.
Yes.
Did they draw straws and you?
Hey, she gets to work
I
with
wish
me.
it was that lucky.
I'll do the introductions while he's setting this up. Is that
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Well,
Kelly.
good morning, Chairman Persis.
Introduce yourself and your
Okay.
title. You know.
And good morning, Chairman Persis, school board members, and Superintendent Egner. I'm Kelly Schultz, Director of Community Information here for the school district, and I am joined by District 1 Councilwoman Barb Gertman.
Yes.
And also here joining us is Brian Rothwell, Activities Project Manager with the county, and he's going to be clicking the slides through for us. And we're here to talk about the census.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I guess we're missing one, so.
He'll be right back. He's just getting coffee.
Okay. So do we want to wait for him and Ted?
Oh, go ahead.
Just keep going.
Just keep it going? Okay.
Just keep going.
Well, I know he was really excited about this. He's been talking to me about it for probably about 6 months, how we're going to get involved with Census. So thanks for having us this morning, myself and Brian Rothwell here for the county. Brian is also helping to head up this operation for the county. The county is assigned to be the lead for the census. Unfortunately, our state hasn't invested much of anything in census, and they're entitled or require the counties to take control. So the county has contributed or put in our budget $100,000 to help with this effort, because we know how critical the dollars are, and it was so important just hearing a lot of the conversation with our needs, and certainly those dollars will make a difference. So as you know, the census is coming, and we're getting ready for it. Every 10 years we're counted, and we're partnering with Volusia County Schools, as you know, and other local groups to promote the census to our residents. So we'll first start talking a little about the history. Census started in 1790, and it was directed by Thomas Jefferson. And at that time, we were at 3.9 million people. So what they were afraid of then was that they were undercounted. They were still undercounting. So undercounting is still happening. So what is census? Census is ensuring that we count everyone in the United States, regardless of citizenship or immigration status. It's important that we count our non-residents, our non-citizens, because they also use our resources throughout our community. They drive on our roads, are in our schools, utilize our hospitals. I think one of the critical things when we talk about our immigrant and non-citizens, we want to ensure that people know that the 2020 census is confidential. Your responses to the 2020 census are safe, secure, and protected by federal law. Your answers can only be used to produce statistics. They cannot be used against you in any way. By law, all responses to U.S. Census Bureau household and business surveys are kept completely confidential. It comes under Title 13, and it says that it cannot be released. It can't release any identifiable information about individuals, households, or businesses, even to law enforcement agencies. All Census Bureau staff take a lifetime oath to protect your personal information, and any violations come with a penalty of up to $250,000 and up to 5 years in prison. I think it's important to get that on the record because I think that is one of the real concerns of you as an individual can request your own data. And when that becomes critical, especially here in Florida, when there are natural disasters, if you lose your information, say in the occasion of Katrina, they were able to use census data for people that needed identity, and they were able to go back and use census data as like a birth certificate to verify, you know, their home status and so forth. So I think it's really important that we get that message out as well. So let's get to where our founding fathers felt so strongly to be sure that everyone was counted and represented. When all this is going on and happening, the census will be mailed, will mail invitations to households in mid-March. Remote areas, they'll send someone out to knock on the doors. And it's important that every Volusia County resident complete and return their forms by April 1st. A lot is counting on our count. We expect a major change in the census this year, and this is the first year that you'll be able to apply for your census online, by phone, or by mail. So hopefully we'll be able to get a much better return this time. Okay, where will you be counted? So if you live in Volusia County more than 6 months, you should be counted here. This includes snowbirds and college students, even foreign students who are studying here. Anyone who's in our area, who's impacting our roads and our resources should be counted here. So what we also find is students that are in dormitories will be counted within the dormitory. So anyone that's in any type of facility or institution, even if it's nursing homes or for us like locally at the cloisters, any community where there's an administrator who can count the number of residents, they'll be enumerated through that block. They won't respond to a separate census. So that includes our prisons, our nursing homes, and our dormitories and any similar status.
Can I?
Yes, Ms. Haynes.
So what about, because I was, when I read that part, I thought that was interesting that we count our college students. What if they do not live on campus in a dormitory? You know, what if they're renting locally or things like that? So will they also be counted?
They will be counted, and they should be counted. They will complete a census. Anyone within any of the households that aren't part of a facility or institution.
Okay.
So
if they're renting?
If they're renting and they're here 6 months out of the year, we want them counted here because they're utilizing our resources.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about how we participate and how the dollars are utilized. So we know that census is used to determine our U.S. House of Representatives. So we can certainly anticipate, especially with our local growth, getting a couple, maybe 1 or 2 more seats. So it's really important because the census is political power and resources. The data that's used to determine more than $675 billion is collected and identified through the census. These funds are used, of course, for our schools, for our hospitals, roads, bridges, affordable housing, public transportation, disaster assistance, and so much more. We talked about how much easier it's going to be now for the census form. It will ask only 7 questions. There used to be a very long form that was very tedious that turned people off from filing or responding. So this time, they're just getting down to the brass tacks of it to make sure that we collect as much as we can. And there are some changes to where people can identify more specifically their origin. So it will include the age, the sex, the origin, race, relation, a phone number, and home status. They want everyone counted, whether you're sleeping on the couch or there's somebody who's, staying with you for a while. They don't have to be your immediate family representative or relation. Just anyone within that household that's using resources and breathing the air in that in that environment. So we also, one of the ways that we're going to be able to collect this data is about developing trusted sources. So there's a complete count committee that the school board is part of. Brian also chairs one of the committees for the municipalities. And what we seek to do is create groups that can identify trusted sources on a local level. Because we know areas where we had a hard time counting, especially children 0 to 5, the farm and the migrant, group of farmers. In the minority areas, people just don't trust the system. So it's important that we identify and create relationships on a local level where we can take those messages in. So the Complete Count Committee includes our schools. It includes some of our churches, other businesses, our migrant workers. And again, we seek to create those relationships there on that local level. So back in August is when we kicked off the Complete Count Committee, and our goals are to count people once, to count them only once and count them in the right place, so we can make sure that we increase our numbers. The last time, 2010, the census was, the response rate was 74%. This time we're looking to increase to at least 78%. I'm hoping that now that we're doing it online, by phone and by mail, that maybe we can get up to 80%. In some of our areas, we have response as low as 30%, and that would be in areas of with the migrant workers and minority areas, with somewhere between 30 and 50%. So we really need the school board to really focus on and concentrate on those areas. So Kelly, we're going to have you kind of finish up and get to how the school board is helping to pull that information through.
Okay, could you put the slide on with the schools coming up? Then I can wing it.
This one?
Keep going, keep going. Next one, not that one. There we go.
It's a nice one.
That's a nice slide, though. Yeah. Okay, so impact on public schools. Accurate counts are very important for our schools. This is a lot of money that could be coming in that might not be coming in. The census data determines funding for Title I grants, school lunch programs, school breakfast programs, special education grants, and Head Start. And I know Barb had mentioned, 0 through 5. From the meetings that I've been in, that's one of the most undercounted populations that in our area, because parents will fill it out not thinking that they are supposed to put their children on there. So that's part of the message we're hoping to get out as well. And in my office, we came up with our own flyers, tag teaming with the county and the Census 2020, and we have one in Spanish and one in English. I think each of you have one of those. So this is how we will be getting the message out to our families, especially those in the areas that don't typically participate. So we're also working on doing some, you don't want to call it coloring contests, but part of their artwork in the classrooms at the elementary levels, just so the students come home and maybe it'll generate a conversation with their families of, here's what the census is, some little things.
I think another area that's really important to share that initially when I got involved is I didn't realize the way that the census is reported, it's reported in blocks. So it's not individual. Your individual information is collected, but once it's reported, it rolls up. So it looks at a block, a 20-mile block or a 20-block radius, and says how many people are here within this age range, that have these disabilities or have these needs. So when they start looking at your area to then determine where they need to put resources, is it an area, a high concentration of seniors or young people? Do you need a center here, or do you need a nursing home here? So the way they pull up the census tracts, it gives you more collaborative data to help make those decisions. So I think that's also something that's important for people to know, that they're not targeting you as an individual. They're really looking for who's utilizing our roads, and is it a 55 plus area that shouldn't drive as much or not likely to drive as much. So when you look at our impact fees, when you look at different impacts on the community, you're looking at who rolled up in that 20-block radius. So it's also critical that we get as complete a count as possible, because what they'll also do is make assumptions. Once they've gotten the reports back, once they've had you knock on the door, and once they know they're still undercounting, they're now going to make assumptions based on what was reported previously. So they may not have fully accurate data. If they have an apartment building that, say, is 80% Asian male, right, then they're going to assume that the other 20% equals the same. So we want as accurate data as we can get to be able to target as many resources as possible. So the other area about trusted sources, the census is also hiring, and they hire people from the community who have that trusted voice. So 2020 census.gov/jobs, there are part-time, well-paid. I think they start about $16 an hour. So, and they'll be utilized throughout the process. So.
I think that's it. Any questions?
Well, yeah, let me just ask you, you said that this starts in March, that we'll get it in the middle of March, or?
It'll be mailed out mid-March, and we need to respond by April 1st. Those who do not respond by April 1st, that's when they're going to send the team out to start knocking on doors and to get the data collected. But it'll be from April 1st to probably June that they'll be doing that process to try to collect any that were not reported via online, phone, or return.
So, for instance, all right. So, will I get that information in the mail? Right, it'd be mailed to my house, and would it have my name on it, or does it just say resident? Who's ever living?
Resident, because it tracks your address. It's focused on address. So I guess they can assume who's there because of who's been there previously, but no, they're gonna just send it to your address and expect for you to complete it.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out how would they know who is living where? I mean, at any given time. I mean, it's impossible.
They sent people out to see if there were vacant properties that should not be included, but they're assuming everybody else, is living in those locations.
And then perhaps that's why people think it's junk mail, it just says resident.
And that's going to be important. It's going to be important. That's why we're trying to get the message out to say, to anticipate this, to look for at your mail. Many of us, you pay your bills online. You barely even go to your mailbox, and all you see there is junk mail. So we want people to let them know this isn't junk. There also have been some surveys that have gone out that look similar, and some of our seniors have been fooled to believe that it was the actual census, that when they filled it out and sent it back, that they don't need to do it again. So
Right.
we're trying to get that message out as well. Whether it was intentional, however it was
Sure.
done, that was the perception from some of the seniors, was that is the
Okay,
census.
let's see if board members have some questions. Ms. Cuthbert had her hand up. Yep.
Will this have an impact on how we build our schools, as we might have to expand to build another school?
Absolutely.
Okay. 'Cause
That data is used for everything. When you look at this, any of our dollars, they first pull the census data. So, and I think Volusia has grown so much.
Yes.
2010, yeah. So
it's an
I would
awful
think
lot.
it's going to have an impact. Like I said, I think it's going to impact us politically. I would think that we'd get a seat, additional seat.
And also, my other question was about fraud, because so many times we have been subject to fraud that people may not want to look at it because they think has something to do with the scam. So I was just a little concerned about that, but I think you've addressed some of that already. And also, our businesses have access to the census. For example, in a 1 mile radius in a community in my district, there are 3 car part stores. Within a 10-mile radius, there are 2 very large nursing homes. Now, does a business who wants to put in a nursing home, for example, look at the consensus to see what the age group is in that community in order to put?
Absolutely.
nursing
I
home?
think anyone who's looking at a business prospectus, especially, national, are going to look at pull our census data. They have access to the cumulative data, not the individual data.
So that's where they get their information. Okay.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure that was public. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert.
Certainly.
Mr. Cologne.
And so we attended a presentation at FSBA about this, and one of the things that I'm starting to see municipalities do, school districts do, is they are starting to use joint logos. Some folks, whether it's Census 2020, One Vision, One Mission, they're starting to coin some sort of joint logos that is starting to go out on everything that goes out. And so I absolutely support the idea of having these ongoing activities, because we really can, if you can educate the children to go back to their homes where their parents may not be settled on, feeling comfortable doing this. And if those kids can go home and say, hey, today's the big day, we're supposed to see this in our mailbox, you can start to generate that excitement, and they're going to educate their parents. And so I would, I guess for the superintendent, I am, and I'm only speaking for me, I think that we should really get creative, send this message, be deliberate, be intentional, be strategic. There are areas that may need to see it more than others. I think Councilwoman Gertman identified where these areas are. And so does that mean that we opt to put a banner? Does it mean that, I don't know how we can get creative, but again, there's so much at stake, and again, messaging matters. And so I personally would support a joint logo until the census is done, but of course, that's something for your consideration as well as the rest of the board. So
I think it's going to be really important that we create messaging that touches people where they are. If you're on a waiting list for childcare because the funds ran out, that's something that's going to touch somebody locally. If you need resources for your mom because she's a senior, however it is that we can break it down to where it's where you live and what touches you personally, I think those are the stories that we need, and especially in the schools and especially with the parents, because that's where the rubber's going to meet the road, and probably where a lot of the fear and concern is.
And
Mr. Cologne, you still have the floor.
yeah,
Go ahead.
thank you. And the representative that did the presentation, she was from the Redlands down south, and she was talking about how her area struggles because the 2010 census determined how many Head Start seats they had.
Yeah.
And so that whole area has just bloomed, but they don't have access to Head Start because there aren't enough seats. And it's because it was determined in 2010. Again, I learned a lot from this individual, and she's a school board member down there, but she also has been working with the census in 2 cycles. And I think we have an opportunity, so thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wright.
And along the same line, I think it's going to be imperative that our schools, because I believe on the form that will be, or the invitation, will be a hyperlink that they can go and complete the census online. And I think where we could really help is actually have our schools open in the evening, maybe during that 2-week period, where parents, and maybe have schools do something fun, dealing with civics, having parents come to actually their child's school and complete the census online. I think that is probably the simplest and the quickest way to be effective, but maybe have a drive during the time we know that they are actually received, and have each school have something geared towards that where parents can come in the evening. Again, making a safe environment, knowing that they are their child's school where they can complete their census online.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea.
We're also going to have the libraries available for the same. So I think any community programs or resources that could be utilized in that way, and just make it the most comfortable, inviting, and non-threatening, environment. And the more we can keep that messaging to how it impacts your local area and your road, your street, your church. Brian, you want to add something?
And also, we spoke about at the roundtable last month. We're thinking about around the second week of March or third week of March, where we have like a Volusia County Day, where all the cities, all the counties, maybe the school board, we allow the citizens to come fill out the forms that don't have computers at their home, where they can go to a safe environment, where they can fill out the form and get assistance with filling out the form. So we're thinking about doing it probably second week or third week in March. And also, the forms will come the second week of March, but you're going to get a form each week. Second week, third week, fourth week. Then that fourth one is the one, okay, it's really time for you to fill out this form for the April 1st deadline.
Oh, I didn't know that. Ms. Haynes?
So I love the fact that you're partnering with us, but going back to that college student piece, college students don't ever really look at their mail. And knowing that we have a lot of students here in Volusia County attending like Emory-Riddle and all that from out of state, because my nephew's one of them. He comes in August, he goes home in May, so he spends the bulk of his time here. But I can tell you right now, unless we can get the universities and colleges on board to also start messaging it, I really feel like we need to partner with them to get, because that's a large number of students. I don't know that we'll pull the college group in, so I appreciate you coming today and that we're partnering, but I think we also need to partner with all of, because we have a lot.
Well, college and universities is also one of the subcommittees.
Okay.
So just like the school board is, the Farm Bureau, the colleges, they're reaching out to each of the colleges and have a representative. We've reached out to each of the cities. Each city has a representative. So we've really tried to get in front of this. Right now is the informative period. In January, you'll start to see a lot of the banners and posters and bus communication. That's how we're going to use that $100,000 is more for the marketing and awareness piece. But we've tried to get as far in front of it as possible to let those 10 segments know that we're coming.
And you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
Barb, the actual cover of the envelope, the front of the envelope that people are going to get in the mail, do you have a photo of that?
We do not have a copy
if I
of
recall correctly, it's going to say U.S. Department of Commerce Census Bureau.
Yeah.
But it's going to form is going to be not a normal size envelope, so hopefully they can tell that this is official.
Yeah.
when they get the actual document.
Well, I was just thinking we could put it on our website
I
or
agree.
just have the students, have that, just so people see this is coming.
Right.
So it's not
As
junk,
we
it's-
get closer,
Yeah.
we'll have that. I think
Okay.
we don't want to kind of inundate them
Sure,
with
sure.
the visual now, because I think it'll be,
It's a long way off.
It's too
It's a
far
long-
away,
yeah,
and then it'll just fade away.
I get it.
So we're trying to plant as many seeds with the leaders through the community, with the trusted voices, to try to get it nurtured and sinking in now. And then January, I think you'll see a much stronger push.
Mr. Klum.
One thing that they said that was huge is the young lady who did the presentation, she was Latina, and she said, we need to make sure that our community, specific the Latin community, knows that the way to keep the government from coming to your door is by filling it out. If you fill it out, they won't be coming to your door to say how many people live here.
Right.
Yeah,
And I think you were out when we talked about how secure, confidential, and the penalties attached to any type of fraudulent or reaching out in a negative way.
Okay, let me bring it back to Kelly. So Kelly, I'm sure you're going to be back in front of us between now and March and bringing us up to speed.
Absolutely.
All right, any further comments from the board?
Thank you.
Councilmember Gertman, so glad you're here.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Let me also mention that Billy Wheeler is the co-chair with me. I chair the west side, and Billy Wheeler is chair for the east side. So we've been going throughout, meeting with different cities and organizations throughout Volusia, sharing the information. So we thank you for having
We
us
thank
today.
you, Mr. Rothwell. Thank you for being here, and we will be a partner in this. Trust me, we will work hard.
And thank you.
To get that complete count. All right, and now we're going to take a 10-minute break. Okay, 10-minute break. We're in recess for 10 minutes.
Good. Thank you.
Oh, no, you mean when you left? Oh, I was talking about your picture. I just didn't want to take it away.
Speak to Barb. When you got here.
Chad, will you change the video?
Really exciting for
About the short shoot again. I don't know.
Of course, if Mike's not here, it's not working. What's that? I said, of course, if Mike's not here, it's not working. I don't know. Story of my life.
Hi, I'm Lexi Dimple, and I'm 22 years old, and I own a nutrition club called Alive Nutrition West here in Ormond Beach. My favorite class or do nutrition and cooking, and that was my biggest. It taught us things in our everyday life to also make extra income or to help other people. In high school, everybody loved each other for who they were. And once I brought back that memory, how it was in high school and how everybody loved me for who I was, not who I looked like, that's when my story kind of started unfolding and my weight loss journey had started helping into the person that I am today. And it feels so good when you get to go out to the and you get to invite people into what is possible, that they can be the best versions of themselves. They can if they're willing to work. When you just try anything becomes by just following
So this is my 8th grade art class. They are in the midst of doing a black and white grid drawing.
You're keeping your toes warm. Exactly.
Cassidy, it was 66. Yes, repeat question.
I'm trying to get this board to hurry up and go through everything. All right. I'm not calling them to bump it up as well.
You've just done spheres and shapes. Now they're going to actually do it.
I'm sure they will.
Plus additional school supply. Our employees have donated. Boston Whaler matched that. We always deliver them in a vote because vote for
The employees a lot of kids from our are in all the schools and help out in the way they can.
Getting feel very cool with it. And just the need of our community, it helps so much.
The extra that our community does for really there's no way that we can do without support. It's very grateful. We always know they're behind us, so it's a great feeling for us. It's great for our kids and their
Hi, I'm Jenny Enslin, and I'm a virtual teacher. I grew up in Ponce. there, so coming to the lighthouse is always kind of a fun memory. In high school, I didn't really know I was athletic. I did join the track team to do put years ago. I started having health problems and ablation, and my cardiologist recommended I exercise for an hour a day. That really kind of catapulted me into racing. I did 5Ks, then 10Ks, and then I was really excited trying to fight Boston. It was extremely emotional. Of course, I was dreaming about it for years, and I had some doubts because it was the worst weather they had in 40 years. There were about 1,000 runners that dropped out with hypothermia, pouring rain. It was sleeting on the way up to the actual race. Having some doubts that I was going to be able to finish was creeping into my mind, but as I got closer to the finish line, it definitely started just being really emotional that finally was being able to live my dream. One of my teammates, she was only 18 and I'm 43. And you know what? She said, sometimes you have to improve. She was sometimes before race. I would pass that on to other students that life can be hard, but you have to do hard things and just keep stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Reconvene in 4.01 Career and Technical Education Update. And we have Miss Rachel Rutledge with us. And hello, you're with us too, Ms. Myers. Okay, you want to go ahead and start and introduce yourselves, and away we go.
Good morning. My name is Katie Dyer. I'm the Director of K-12 Curriculum and School Improvement. Chairman Persis, school board members, Superintendent Egner. We are here this morning to bring you an update on the state of CTE in Volusia County. We have some exciting things happening. A comprehensive local needs assessment has been conducted that we want to share with you. We have 2 potential new career academies on the horizon. We are considering some new work-based learning opportunities for students. So I have Coordinator Rachel Rutledge here of CTE, and she will talk through some legislative changes as well and everything else that's happening.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Persis, members of the board, Superintendent Egner. Appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you today. Today, I want to share with you a few of the legislation changes. I've mentioned them before in updates. We're not going to spend as much time as the folks that were here earlier, but I want to be sure you understand our impact. We're going to talk about the comprehensive local needs assessment, look at career academy implementation documentation, as well as those new career academies. So our major legislation that governs career and technical education is Perkins. And I've brought to you before that Perkins 5 was signed into law in 2018. Mainly, we have some areas of focus that we have to bring forward in Volusia County, one of them being a comprehensive local needs assessment. I'll share with you in a minute what that looks like. Part of the new legislation also requires enhanced stakeholder engagement, and that's everyone from our students to our teachers, business and industry partners, economic development, workforce. Everyone is a part of that stakeholder group. Also looking at our programs of study, we talked about this back in the spring, being sure that we have the appropriate programs in place that are quality, that are leading towards tomorrow's jobs. There's an increased focus on work-based learning experiences, and work-based learning is defined as sustained interactions with business and industry professionals in real workplace settings or a simulated environment like you would see in a school-based enterprise. That could suffice for work-based learning as well. Increased focus on equity and access for our special populations, and we are in alignment with ESSA in terms of special populations as well as WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. But we have some additional ones through Perkins. We have individuals with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, non-traditional fields like that young lady in construction or that male in early childhood education, single pregnant women or fathers, English learners, homeless, youth aged out of the foster care system, and a student whose parent is a member of the armed forces. So those are our special populations that we are going to be required to understand what direction they're headed through CTE. So there's a huge emphasis on tracking and data in the new law, and those are some systems we're working on putting in place right now to be sure that we're in compliance. So the comprehensive local needs assessment looks at a variety of data sources from walkthroughs. About a month ago, we were in our high schools and middle schools. Thank you for supporting that initiative. Our schools did a great job welcoming the team. We're contracting with the Southern Regional Education Board to help with this process. We did walkthroughs and evaluated the classroom instruction. It was not at all a teacher evaluation, but program instead. We've done interviews, collected artifacts on collaboration. We're going to be looking at labor market data. Surveys have gone out. So many different areas of data that our contractor is then going to consolidate into a report for us, and that's going to help some of our areas of focus to bubble up to the top. So I'm excited to have that. We hope to have that in the next month or so. Will be in our hands. We'll then sit down with stakeholder groups and analyze it and determine priorities, because we will have to address that in our Perkins grant narrative for next year. Another piece of, Executive Order 1931 was also put out by the governor, and that is charting a course for Florida to become #1 in the nation in workforce education by 2030. And one way that the governor sees this happening is through structured legislative priorities and workforce talent. So we are to be looking at our programs once again and helping them point towards high wage, high demand, and high skill careers. It's like a perfect storm, a little bit. There's also the Workforce Education Bill, which is House Bill 7071. And it is the intent of the state of Florida to provide educational opportunities for its residents so they can be trained for trades, occupations, and professions suited to their abilities. And one way that it wants us to do that is through the establishment of pre-apprenticeship programs in public schools. And so we've been putting a lot of efforts into trying to build out a path towards pre-apprenticeship. The gentleman before also referenced some other pieces of House Bill 71, which is the career planning, a statewide CTE audit of programs to be sure that they align to what our needs are in the state of Florida. And another piece is an adjunct teaching certificate that is a part of that legislation. So you see everything's lining up for CTE to be a focus in our community. The state of our work-based learning currently in Volusia County schools, we have on-the-job training that takes place for our high school students, also executive internships. Of this, though, only 1% of CTE enrollments are engaged in some kind of formal work-based learning experience. And for career and technical education students, it is vital that they have that hands-on experience in their field. This is an area of focus moving forward for us in Volusia County. So many of our students are not going the four-year route to their bachelor's degree. They may want to go right to work when they get out of school or pursue additional training, associates. Found some statistics, only 34% of people in Volusia County actually have an associate's degree or higher. So we play a critical role in Volusia County schools to help prepare them for what's next so that they can be successful when they graduate from high school and help set them on their appropriate paths. We have been working to develop a pre-apprenticeship program. We have several business and industry partners that have said, yes, what's next? What can we do? Specifically in building trades and construction and manufacturing, they want to engage with our students. They're calling me to talk about how we can plug those kids in and help get them connected. Such an important piece moving forward is those relationships. I know we've talked a lot about that today, but continuing to develop and foster the relationships with those partners to facilitate them connecting with our students, because it's in the best interest of our students to have that hands-on experience. And also having our academy students as well as our CTE program students being involved in these work-based experiences. With so few of our residents in this district holding a degree, we need to show them their path to success, whatever that looks like. That it's not necessarily the traditional associates or bachelors, but it may be. That may be exactly where they need to go to head to their next step. So in terms of, I wanted to come speak with y'all today just to try to develop this pre-apprenticeship concept. This is new. Not a lot of districts in Florida are on this path towards pre-apprenticeship. In other states surrounding us, you see more pre-apprenticeship opportunities. There are two different pathways. About half the states in the nation, pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeships are governed by the Department of Labor, and in the other half it's Department of Education. It runs through the Department of Education in Florida. And what we have been trying to figure out is how to have standards in our high schools for pre-apprenticeship in the 11th grade, have students work in the summer as they're moving to rising seniors. So they're 16 or 17 years old at this point, having about 6 weeks of hands-on instruction and training over the summer, and then moving into advanced training or additional coursework in their senior year. With the idea that when they graduate, they can move into an apprenticeship program, a registered apprenticeship, at a higher wage, at a step above other entry-level apprentices. So maybe they've already clept out of their first year, and there's an opportunity, they're already on their path towards success when they graduate. So we're still developing some of the processes for that, but I'd really like your input on this direction to see if it's something that you feel like we could support and sustain, or concerns that you have.
Well, help us understand now the last group that was just here with Mr. Foster and Mr. Wagner, and we were going through some slides, and they pointed out how in middle school now students become aware of what job opportunities or workforce opportunities or CTE programs. Can you explain how we're doing that in our middle schools?
Certainly. Yes, House Bill 7071 does require that students have a plan for their career path when they move into high school. So that is actually being handled through our social studies course. There's an 8th grade course that career planning, do you know the name of it, Katie?
I don't know the name of it.
The course standards for career planning are embedded into that social studies course, and they're working through the online plan to help come up with a career path for themselves. We also put into place an orientation to career clusters course this year through CTE. The challenge with that is not every kid runs through it. But that 8th grade social studies class, every child takes. And so they're able to be promoted to high school having been through that course with the career planning piece engaged.
Okay, and just for the record, can you describe what a work-based learning experience is?
Absolutely. It is sustained engagement with a business or industry partner. So it may look like an internship where the student goes 5 days a week. It might be 1 day a week. The idea is that it is something sustained. It's not a one-time job shadow, but it's something where they're interacting with business and industry professionals and building their soft skills. That is a key component that they need as they graduate. And it takes different forms. It could be a part-time job that they have, or internship or pre-apprenticeship type situation.
Okay, and just so I'm sure I understand, and this is something that could be done during their time in high school, during the school year, as well as summer?
Yes, it's possible that it could be both. The executive internship and on-the-job training offer course credit. The pre-apprenticeship, should we be able to move forward with that, is also something that they could earn course credit for. So they're getting their high school credits out of the way that they need to graduate.
Okay, and that's where we only have 1% of our students
Correct.
currently doing that, right?
Correct.
And that's obviously going to be a focus to build that number.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know board members have questions, lots of questions. Ms. Wright, I'll start with you.
No, go ahead. I'm vice chair. Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Ms. Haynes.
Thank you. So the 1% is disheartening. And what I really want to see, and I even talked about this last year shortly after I was elected to this position, is I had a coworker whose son graduated from University High School, knew he did not want to go to college, but there was really no discussion of what other paths he could take. So we did a lot of research knowing that this was going to happen, and we fortunately found an electrician, that does apprenticeships. And so I happen to know that our Volusia Builders Manufacturing Association and all that, they've wanted to partner with us for quite a while. I still don't understand, I understand there's legalities of like safety and all of that, but we've got kids, when you look at only 34% of the adults in Volusia County have an associate's degree or higher, we are failing all the rest of those kids that are not on that career path at this time for college, even whether it's a 2-year plan or a 4-year plan. I am hoping that somehow we can start communicating, and I think it's going to take Dr. Amy Hall and her team also, that we have guidance counselors talking, as well as teachers. Talking about their career in just an 8th grade social studies class is also, I feel, not enough. And we have to talk about, it's great to be an electrician or a plumber or a welder. And we haven't made those connections, but yet those are needs within our own community where these kids could walk out and they could, even if they started their junior year, and we brought that, and so this young man's in an apprenticeship, but he didn't get to start till after he graduated. So he could already have 2 years finished, and he's taking some of his courses, and they're covering it, but he would have already had 2 years and only had 2 more years to go. Instead, he walked out, and now he's got 4 years of doing an apprenticeship in order to reach that level. So I just want to know what we're going to do differently, because we're not targeting all of our kids. And, that's why we see, I think that's contributing to our high poverty numbers also, because we're not preparing our kids to be able to take on jobs that are sustainable. And I have watched since 2008 till now, we went from 20 Title I school, or 26 Title I schools, and we served everybody from the 40% poverty mark and up. And now I think we're at 67 point something, and we've got 50 some of our schools. And if we went to 40, I think there'd only be 1 elementary. So what's that saying about our economy and what's happening here? And we're in the business of teaching students so that they can be contributing adults, and we're missing the mark.
Well, let me give you a chance to respond to that.
Sure. Ms. Haynes, I am 100% in agreement. There is more that we can do. Absolutely. I am a champion for CTE because I look around our community and see opportunities for students. It's not the same route that everyone takes, but there are real jobs in our community that are life-sustaining for these students if we can equip them with the skills needed to get there. And that's why this is a major area of focus for us in career and technical education, because these kids have to have that hands-on exposure to what that job looks like. They don't understand. They don't understand what these career fields are. They've grown up, I want to go to college, want to go to college. Well, of course, we want you to get additional education post-high school, but that just looks a little bit different for everyone. This comprehensive local needs assessment, that's a part of Perkins. I imagine that it is going to say the same thing that we're talking about right now, is that that is an area of focus. And building those relationships is a key part. You mentioned VBIA. I have been in touch with them regularly, trying to work out details, and it does come down to a lot of the legalities of it is a major concern. And so those are some pieces that we are trying to work out because we've got to get those kids that hands-on experience that they need. So we're moving forward in preparing the kids. Just there's some pieces and parts that we still have to work out.
Yeah.
Ms. Wright.
I just wanted to touch on that counseling piece, that we are working with Dr. Hall and her team to articulate what it should look like at every grade level. What should ninth graders talk about career-wise with their counselor, 10th graders, 11th and 12th, and so forth, because that obviously needs to be reinforced and thought through every year, touching base with students to find out, what are they thinking about their future and how can we support that.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. Ms. Wright, did you want to comment now?
Yeah, so my question is, how many districts currently have a pre-apprenticeship program in Florida?
There are only 3 or 4 in the state that have this in place.
Which ones have you looked at or visited or are you planning to mirror?
If I may call Adam Blair to the dais real quick. Thank you for allowing him to come sit in. I've been working with him to uncover what's happening within our state on pre-apprenticeships. Can you speak to
Adam, if you could just introduce yourself and your title, please.
Good morning. My name is Adam Blair. I'm a personalized learning leader, but I am working with Ms. Rutledge on the pre-apprenticeship program for Volusia County. And to answer your question, Ms. Wright, you're asking about the districts that currently have pre-apprenticeship programs. Miami-Dade has probably the largest currently. We have not had an opportunity, as the bill has just recently passed, to visit Miami-Dade, but we have been doing a ton of research to see how they organize and how they include their students. Right now, they do have, as Ms. Rutledge had alluded to, they have a corresponding summer internship program. We would look to mirror that same idea to start within the next year. So the students would be a junior, and they would receive their curriculum through that level 3 coursework. Throughout the year, including any safety items that need to be covered, such as OSHA 10. And then during the summertime, it would be an internship or pre-apprenticeship program to allow these students that hands-on component. And then beyond that, if there's an opportunity for the businesses to incorporate the cooperative education piece or the work-based learning piece for the student throughout the rest of their senior year to give them that additional step up, I believe, as Ms. Haynes had kind of mentioned, that year ahead of training for the students to be prepared to roll into an apprenticeship program.
So we have not looked at Orange County, Osceola County, or West Palm Beach County, because all of them have.
Orange County, Seminole County, and Lake County do have pre-apprenticeship programs. I've been in contact with Seminole County. They contract out with a group similar to VBIA that handles their pre-apprenticeship programs.
And we've reached out to them. That's the Academy of Construction Technologies based out of Orlando. And we have worked with them in the past, but right now they're not able to take on Volusia County as a part, but they're going to consider it again next year as a possibility.
Okay. I'm just asking because I'm looking, and several of them have built partnerships, but they're more extensive. I see Miami-Dade, I see Palm Beach County has had one in place for several years. So I think I see actually Lake as well as Osceola County, too, have had similar programs for a couple of years. So I'm just saying, instead of us reinventing the wheel, I just think it'd be probably prudent that we talk to some of these other districts that have had some programs in place for at least 3 years already prior to this mandate. And they do focus on middle school, and some of them go as deep as 6th grade. That's my concern, that we wait so late, we wait to 9th grade. We really should be having these conversations pretty much at 6th grade, or just introducing something to children in 6th grade so they give them an idea of what they would like to do.
Right, and
just a recommendation.
Yes, ma'am, that career planning piece does need to start very early. I would suggest even 5th grade to start exploring what are careers, what does it take to pursue different options, because we know in elementary school you want to be an astronaut, a football player, and a doctor all at the same time. There's at some point we've got to help them really understand which direction we want to go and start narrowing down the field. If by the time they graduate from high school they've narrowed it down, that's a victory too.
But in that, you could take the same example and just show them some of the classes, regardless if you want to be a football player or if you want to be an astronaut, why science is important,
Right.
why being in physical good condition is important. All of those, we have to be unique in the approach. But that's a whole nother conversation. Thank you.
You're right. Welcome, Ms. Wright. Mr. Egner.
Yeah, there were probably 2 or 3 things I wanted to bring up with this. One is, this is just one flavor of a very comprehensive program. And I don't want to diminish the level of success this district has had with the other flavors. Going through New Smyrna Beach High School just last week and seeing the connection between their CTE programs and dual enrollment, and their connection between their CTE programs and direct employment with like 911 operators. And Ms. Albert was present for that as well. The connection there was very direct. Those students would leave if they became a 911 operator trainee. The training went from 20 weeks to 2 weeks. So we have some very good relationships that lead directly to jobs, but there are too few of them, and they typically don't involve an internship. We also have many of our 40-plus career academies that have direct connections to degree programs at a state college. You know, you're going from this right into this track in which you'll complete and you'll get a license. This is a nuance which says how many of these and others can we develop apprenticeships that take place during the school year that's a little more than OJT, where you've got a job somewhere and you can get credit. This is very targeted. There's probably 3 things that get in the way. By the way, I think it's U.S. history with career planning. That's the 8th grade class. There's 3 things that kind of get in the way. One, of course, is the legalities of it. Because when businesses, and I know it's done, but I'm just want you to be aware, businesses are very conscious when they have 16-year-old kids working in sometimes places where there's inherent capacity for danger. And no one wants to buy that kind of trouble. So we have been researching various waivers. I've seen 3, 4, 5 examples. I reached out to a national organization and received 3 that are pretty successful with guidebooks that I've passed on. So that's a step to get that documentation right and cleared and everything so people feel comfortable. A second big issue is marketing, because the example you gave is probably a parent and a student who may have been very aware. Most of the parents we're dealing with, everybody's going to a 4-year college directly out of school. That's what they think, and they think that at elementary, and they think it at middle school. So when we market these options, often the resistance is in the household. It's not that the opportunity isn't there, it's that people are not convinced, I don't want to settle. They don't understand that it's not settling, that it's equal or above, depending upon your children's capacity and interest and where they want to go after they graduate. So trying to get that counseling piece not so much with the kids, but with parents, is a huge challenge because we don't have the kind of direct access with parents that we do with their kids while they're in school. So, and the third, quite frankly, is graduation. Because when we're looking at this, our focus is so strongly towards graduation that the path, which includes CTE courses as a component, electives, and all the other core courses that go into a graduation, and especially the standardized assessment, is all built into things. Once kids really have to be on track for graduation, or it's very hard for them to take advantage of these opportunities. So the very students who are having trouble in school may almost exclude themselves from participating because everyone is focused on trying to get them to graduation. So there's a way that we have to meld those things to where one is supporting the other. And this goes back to your long discussion about the different graduation options. I think whatever the state decides, it just needs to be honest. And by that I mean this. The CTE option for graduation was really not a graduation option. What it did was it took an 18-credit diploma option that already exists, changed a few of the electives so that you focused on CTE classes, but changed nothing about assessment. So the very kids who you might say, oh, they'll take the CTE option, well, they could have done it anyway, and B, it took nothing away from the requirements for graduation. So it was just a flavor of a standard diploma. It wasn't another path. Now, part of me says that's probably a good idea because so many of programs I have seen in the past get sold on pushing students through. Then when they get through, they can't pass any of the licensure exams because they don't have a 10th grade reading level, or they can't do basic math. So there is a push and a pull here that we have to present all aspects to, because one is graduation. That's what we do, and the different options for students as they graduate need to be robust and broad and accepted as equals, and so the task is huge. But we are, I think, and I don't hear any objections, so I think we are absolutely committed to trying to build up this flavor so that it becomes more of a norm and employers aren't afraid of it, and students who have a specific direction can know how to get there easily. But all the other options are still going to be there, and they're still pretty robust and growing even as we speak, based on the schools I've visited and the programs I've seen. In fact, I was stunned at how professional and well managed and kids in track with those were. I'm not worried about them at all. But we have another segment of students who could really benefit from this option.
Thank you, Mr. Egner. Ms. Cuthbert.
Having spent my entire career on a high school campus, except when I was in elementary school, I know that a lot of kids, freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, just think school's going to be perpetually ongoing and they don't have to worry about anything. But I also know in the days of old, we had an occupational specialist on campus, along with the guidance counselors, but we did not have academies at that time. We also had an OJT individual, as well as the occupational specialist and guidance counselors. Today we have a facilitator, which we fund, the county funds half a unit. But I think the missing piece is not the OJT and counselors at the end of the year trying to get their seniors graduated. They are proctoring AP exams. They are going through all their data to make sure all the kids have all their graduation requirements, their test scores and everything, talking to colleges. What I think needs to happen at the high school campus, there needs to be one person designated to say, and all high schools have marquees, whether it's in the cafeteria or across the front, and ask the question, have you made up your mind post-graduation? Do you know what you're doing? A constant barrage of asking that question. If not, contact such and such and have a designated contact. Because there's always the VolutionOnline.com, there's always the Chamber of Commerce, their businesses, but if they had one contact at the high school level that they can slip into, and I think it's too much to ask a guidance counselor because they have so much to do all year long, keeping their kids graduating. I think they just might be able to feel comfortable enough to walk into that office and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm graduating. It's May 1st. I haven't been accepted anywhere. Florida State's always been my dream. I'm not going to be able to get in. What opportunity is there? Because mom's kicking me out of the house in 30 days. So, and I don't want to work my part-time job anymore. So I think if we have a concentrated effort, especially to our seniors, I mean, you've done a great job backing it up into the middle school, and we've had a wonderful job with our academies, but I think the piece that we're missing that you were talking about earlier is addressing those who have not made their minds up. But they have to know who to contact. Who do you call?
Thank you for that comment. At most of our schools, we do have a work-based learning person on site that manages OJT. There are a couple of schools that do not currently have that. And to have that face-to-face contact with that CTE facilitator, they have a lot on their plates. They really do. I would love for them to have more time to do the one-on-one with those students and help them get on that path.
But it needs to be published.
Mm-hmm. I
You know,
agree.
all year long.
It's a good idea.
And it's just one person, and that it could be an administrator, could be a facilitator, it could be anything. And some of those schools that have the facilitator be the full year or full unit, maybe just 1 hour a day or a half. Because I know it's all about funding. I understand that, but one person needs to be designated who's the contact person, and the student body needs to know who that is. Otherwise, they leave and they go, I don't know who to talk to. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. Just want to make sure I follow that. Are we saying we do not have an occupational specialist anymore at high school? Is that position
I'm not
gone?
familiar with that term. We have someone that
It's been gone for a while.
We haven't had one for like a while.
Yes,
Okay.
for a long time.
I remember that term quite well, but I didn't know whether that's.
We have a CTE facilitator at each of our high schools, but they're a half teacher unit. And we also have teachers that are OJT representatives at 8 of our 10 high schools.
It used to be there were no career technical facilitators, and most schools had an occupational specialist, but I think that went away like 20.
It did. Went away for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. Further comments? Further comments? Comments? How about from you?
There's more slides.
You'll be hearing from me again. as far as this is concerned with work-based learning, because Ms. Haynes, just to address your concern, and Ms. Wright, this is definitely an area of focus. What I really like about this pre-apprenticeship piece is that it's leading to college, just in a different way. You know, it's with that hands-on training. So many of these programs offer free education for our students, so they're working and they're earning. I mean, it's a win-win for the kids. So we're going to continue to explore that and move forward. A couple other things I wanted to just discuss with you. We had a need to develop a new process for career academies to onboard. Over time, they grew exponentially, and we needed to have a more streamlined process in place. So the CTE office put together a new implementation proposal that has a timeline. So if a school does want to add a new academy in, they are able to fill out a letter of intent, which then engages other departments within the school district to be sure that all the pieces and parts are in place for it to be a successful academy and sustain long term. So it also offers an opportunity to, if it's not exactly working out the way that the school wants it to, that there's an opportunity to shift gears, maybe to go back towards a program and focus on some other areas. So I'll be happy to share this with you by email. I didn't upload it, but if you'd like to take a look at that, it's a structured planning that takes place over a year to get to the point of academy. So that was important for us to develop, so we didn't just have some surprises that came up in our schools, but that we have a hand in it as well. And we do have 2 career academies proposed for this year. One of them is the Academy of Digital Media Enterprise at Deltona High School. We're excited about this. It is looking at the production side. So it's graphic arts, but also with a business flair. I think they're going to do a great job with that. Students are going to have the opportunity to specialize with which industry certifications they would like to obtain. So there's a lot of student choice, and they're going to be doing all the collateral and swag at their school. So that's going to be their school-based enterprise that's going to be a result of that. And secondly is CUDA Care at New Smyrna Beach High School. They are proposing their established early childhood education program to move towards an academy model. We had a chance to visit those little ones the other day on site. Very excited that we're going to move forward. They want to add a new pathway called Principles of Teaching in a couple of years. So that could be a grow your own kind of situation for some of our teacher crisis. So I appreciate the time. Do you have, yes?
I wanted to add this a little. As you can tell, I'm very invested in this because I strongly support it and like to see it grow and get better in many ways. The new application process is necessary because academies are a major commitment and they tend to impact the entire school. And you may have heard of situations where someone had the best program in the world and then she retired.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an academy. That is a course with a great teacher, or a set of courses with one great teacher. And we have seen academies and programs, fall based on one person moving to another state. So the application looks at a variety of factors, including sustainability, in that do you have enough teachers to sustain this if the one who's the primary teacher leaves? That's the kind of nuance we want to get into as you make this level of commitment, which usually involves facilities, equipment, staff, et cetera, and you get kids in the tube, and you don't want the tube to close up. So you have to really make sure that it's being done right, and I compliment Rachel for all the work she's done in trying to reform that. A second issue, and Ms. Haynes, it relates back to the kind of problem that some of the students you identified had, and that is traditionally when we did application process for some of these, it was mostly a school-based thing with a group of teachers who picked, several kids. Often, that student who might need the most help or might profit most from that academy might be left out because of their GPA or because of some other factor, which technically on the application didn't preclude them, but when you were pushing for scarce seats, you tended to vote high, with the teacher committee. So Rachel's also trying to reform the application process to include the groups she identified, the underrepresented groups and others, so that this is more of a lottery system once you get in, so that kids have access to these opportunities, some of which didn't, who might have benefited from it simply because of the committee selection process. So this will be something to keep in mind, and I do have one other caution, which I have brought to the attention of principals as well as cabinet, and that is sometimes we have put too much pressure on a principal when they tried to come up with a new idea. For example, I'd like to try this experiment at middle school with a career-focused set of courses. And we say, well, can you do it without staffing? Can you do it on your own budget? Can you do it? Can you do it? And they say yes. Then we find out once it's implemented that those courses, those teachers have 40 less kids than the other two teachers, and then the other two teachers are teaching core classes with 160 kids in them, and that's not right. So we have to also, as we move forward, and I say this to you because you will set policy on this, people have to be honest with us and say, I want to do this, but it's going to cost another half unit. Is there the money? Because we can't use school average class size as a way to manipulate this to such a degree that the math teacher and the social studies teacher and the science teacher are super overburdened because you've started some type of career-focused class. Yeah. We have to be conscious of how it fits within the context of everything else. So it is not an easy thing to make happen, but I'm confident that Rachel's moving in the right direction, and with your guidance, I think we'll get there.
Mr. Coloni.
So I have lots of thoughts, so I'm going to limit it to just a few minutes, but the Academy of Digital Media Enterprise at Deltona High 2 years ago went through the traditional process and was shot down because we were instituting a new process. So now I'm going into my second school year and they still don't have an academy, which they had gone through the traditional process 2 years ago. I am more concerned at the obstacles that you're facing as we are at a crossroads right now with a new superintendent, because for 2 school years, I think that there's not a lot to show here. I live in an area where my children have 3 choices: food and agriculture, healthcare, and manufacturing, which is limited to a number of seats, as is every program. The application process of a principal, I don't like that idea. And it's because you're dependent on the needs or desire of the principal to engage the needs of that community and that study and all the data you just compiled. Why would we compile all this data and then hope that the principal says, well, I want this program? And so we're not blessed with a lot of academies in my district. I am not convinced that, the buying in the programs is there. When you look at the buy-in on the academy side of it, the buy-in is there. These kids are part of that academy. I do like the fact of having more inclusivity for these academies. But if you're, I remember a long time I was touring with the then director, and I said, how many applications has this school put in for academies? Because they've only got 1. At the time, they only had healthcare. And they said, none. So you mean to tell me that I'm here running on a platform looking at academies, and the principal hasn't applied for any? This was years ago. This was probably about 2 years ago. So how do these academies bloom? And I don't know that relying on a principal to say, I want to do this at my school is the surest process, especially when there's a gap, when there's a need. And so, I guess what I want to say is I support your work. I support you. If there's any obstacles, if there's anything you need from us with our new superintendent direction, my guess is that the 1%, most of the students are probably going to the hospital. And so while that's great, that only does something for a very small group of kids, and I'm blessed that I see these kids in my workplace every single day. So I would hope that we take advantage of this crossroads to really excel. Fortunately, I was glad to hear that the counties that you mentioned, all 3 of our candidates come from these counties. And I truly believe that we have the ability to really excel, because rather than us go to them, they're going to come to us. So it works out well. So that's all I wanted to say.
Rachel, you want to respond to something?
Yes. This comprehensive local needs assessment, I think, is going to give us some wonderful data. It really is. We started the work last year through all the focus groups. If you remember back in the spring, I came forward to you and shared with you what the focus group determined was the direction we needed to go in our schools, and with specifics, some areas of opportunity. And this needs assessment is going to help us make those decisions about which ones to prioritize. It is a collaborative effort, though, with the schools and with the district, because those principals know their student body. They know their kids. But as a district, we also know what the opportunities are within our community to keep those kids in this area. So there's got to be a dialogue, which I'm having with our principals, about what we see as needs in that particular community to get kids engaged, and which ones may not be leading in that direction. So it's there's a lot of conversation taking place with this already, but I appreciate y'all's support as we move forward with CTE. We've got a lot of good work to do.
Thank you.
Sounds like it. So this is, so we can expect to see more and better starting the next school year. Is that what this is all is leading up to? Is that what I'm hearing?
We're always working on more and better. So absolutely, yes. We are building relationships with our community members for sure, trying to engage them in those experiences with our kids because they need it, especially the ones that don't want to pursue that bachelor's degree. Let's get them plugged in so they're not. I think Daytona State's average age was about 27 years old. What are they doing from 18 to 27? We've got to plug them in to a non-dead-end job that's leading towards self-sustaining wages and lives, because that's what we want for our kids. We want to get them through to graduation, but more than that, we want to get them on their correct path.
Yeah, Ms. Wright has a follow-up. Yeah.
So I have one question. So who's designing the programs, the curriculum for each of these academies?
They're based on the curriculum frameworks from the Department of Education, and they pair them up with core classes, and the teachers work together to prepare integrated curriculum. Is that what you're asking?
Well, yes.
Okay.
So basically, we kind of construct what the academy and programs and classes being offered. We do that internally.
Yes, we do.
That's part of the problem. You really do need industry experts to come and not to be in an advisory capacity, really to tell you what is needed in these academies to be successful.
Right.
Because what we may think, and I understand we have to have the core classes, but media and digital technology is so vast, we probably need to look at someone with an expertise who's willing to do it free, invest in the kids in our district to come and really help us map out what the academy should look like.
Right. And that is a component of. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, it has been designed by the schools and by the teachers, but there is in all of our academies there is industry input. Each one of them has an advisory board that works with them. But if you have some recommendations on specific areas of focus for those as advisory boards, that would be welcome.
No, I really don't. But I'm just saying, I just think the advisory board should really be at the beginning of the cart and not the tail. They should be helping before we even implement and start, because I think they can tell us some things and share some things with us so that, I'm gonna go back to Mr. Egner, so if a great teacher leaves, the program is constructed to be self-sustaining regardless of who's in the driver's seat.
Right, right.
I should say one of the reasons why some principals probably don't pick up on some of the opportunities that are there is we literally are in a place where we can't find anybody to hire. And that CTE is particularly difficult. It's almost as bad as ESE in the sense that these people are so specialized and have to go through, even if we do local certification, the requirements are so extensive that if we get one, we're lucky. To think of, we'll have 3 or 4 and can build a program is exceedingly difficult. So our plans can be perfect, but if we can't find the teacher, then the plans don't mean anything. And I think that is a huge issue we're dealing with right now, because I think every principal goes to bed at night hoping their main CTE teacher doesn't decide to go somewhere else. And a lot of them with great expertise can and do because they are of such great value. So that is another factor that has impeded growth or expansion, is we just don't have the staff to do it.
Yeah, good point.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so can we expect, I don't know, March, April, you'll be back and tell us more about where you expect us to be in August? I mean, that's what we really want to know. We know where we are now, and we know that's not so good, having just 1% going through it. But I would think with the legislative changes that we'll know about since they end their session the middle of March, I think we just heard. So maybe sometime in April, you could come back and get us up to
Be happy
where
to.
we're going to be. Okay? Thank you, Dr. Dyer. Thank you, everyone. We are ready to move on, if that's okay with the board. We got, I don't think this will be a very long presentation. Will it, this be a very long
I
presentation?
told her limit it to an hour.
I don't know, will it?
Will it? Not from us.
Okay.
Not from us, you know.
Well, let's put it this way, I only have 4 slides.
All right.
And one is a title slide.
Okay. I like that.
No. Yeah, that one. You gonna do that? I can click. All right, there we go.
Sale of property.
Good morning, Mr.
This
Chairman.
This property's been for sale and sold and sold and sold, right?
Well, let's just jump into it then,
Yeah,
okay?
let's just do it.
Your first slide is the history. This is,
Here we go.
This board has not dealt with this piece of property, but the previous board did deal with this piece of property. We declared it surplus. It was a piece of property associated with the ATC. It is now 78 acres. And we actually went to contract twice on this piece of property. And I've outlined that history for you. Both times was a standard contract. The first time, which was in January of 2018, we had 2 offers. We brought those forward to the board. The board actually chose the one that was just a slightly lower value. There was a discussion about the proposed use and that the use the board felt was a better use addressing the public's interest, a senior housing. That contract was terminated by the buyer in July, and we then went to contract with another investor developer for that same amount. And that contract, too, was terminated by the buyer. So I want to take you to the piece of property and help explain why I think that this piece of property is proving to be problematic as we consider 2 offers that are in front of us today. So on this slide, you can see the ATC. And the property that is outlined in red is the 78 acres that the board owns. You can see green, and then you see an area that's kind of the color of water. Okay, so the area that's in green, those are assumed to be uplands, developable acreage. The area that's shown kind of as a watercolor are the wetlands. And the problem we have here is on several fronts, all of which end up affecting the developable yield, how much it costs to develop the property, how much it costs to mitigate wetlands that would be impacted by development. And that is the succinct way to tell you why this property has proven to be problematic, and we've not been able to achieve an actual closing, even though we had several offers, more than 2 offers, all of which I would consider to be viable, but both of which have, at the end of the day, complained about the costs associated with mitigating wetlands, the uncertainty associated with ultimate yield, which is associated with the entitlement process. This property is in the city of Daytona Beach. It does have a mixed-use land use, however, it's required to go through a planned development zoning. And so I know you know that there's a lot happening out there, but there's also a lot of concern about roadways. and how much it costs for a developer to mitigate the impact of traffic. So those are all the issues. We obtained another appraisal on the property, which I think was indicated on this first slide. After we had 2 terminations, and then we had an offer come forward in July of 2019, substantially lower than what we had been, we went and obtained another appraisal. And that appraisal came back lower than the 2017 value. That appraisal came back at $4.5 million. So right now, there are 2 offers that have been submitted. Offer A, the gentlemen associated with the buyer are in the audience. And interestingly enough, or coincidentally, offer A is associated with development that would be associated with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Yesterday was Veterans Day, so that's the coincidence that we talk about that today. And I will go into that in just a minute. Offer B is typical development entity. Both these entities are out of the Florida area. Both of these entities have numerous developments under their belts. But offer B is associated with what I would call traditional development, multifamily, and a standard contract. Okay, that offer has been made at 3.4. I'd like to talk to you about offer A because it's offer A that I think is interesting, particularly in light of the previous board's discussion about what kind of use is in the public's interest, but also because the process that's associated with this offer is different and involves a third party, the federal government. If I don't explain it well and or if you have detailed questions, I would like the board's indulgence to call up the representatives from the party that's made the offer to speak to it more specifically. This would be an option agreement, which is an option to purchase, but it's associated with what's called an RLP, request to lease process, that the federal government, Department of Veterans Affairs, is putting out. I have been able to confirm through a third party, the County of Volusia, their Department of Veterans Affairs, that in fact there is an RLP that is imminent, that the monies associated for development of a medical facility for veterans has been appropriated in this year's fiscal budget, the federal government, and that began October 1, so I have gotten third-party confirmation of that. It has not been released yet, though. The belief is that it's imminent, that it should be released before the end of the 4th quarter, which is our calendar year 2019. Once that is released, interested parties and the gentleman here, the company has significant experience dealing with the federal government, doing these sorts of developments. Again, if you want to speak to them, they are here. But once that RLP is issued, then there's a period of time by which interested parties have to submit, and that's approximately 60 days, so say 2 months. Department of Veterans Affairs would review, perhaps ask additional questions, review further, but presumably 6 months after that RLP is issued, there's an award to one of the proposers. And I have gotten third-party confirmation, again, the county, that 6 months is what is envisioned. So in terms of this particular slide and the information that was submitted to us that's under conditions, perhaps it's by the time we would actually bring something to the board, it would be a lesser period of time because this appears to be imminent. But suffice it to say, regardless of whether the board entertained offer A or offer B, it would be sometime next fiscal year before I think you would see a closing on the property. And certainly with offer A, they would only proceed to contract if in fact the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs picked this site their interest. That's as succinct as I think I can do this.
Okay. Okay, so we aren't in a voting mode here, so
No.
we're just in an informational gathering status.
Certainly, I would be looking for direction if you want us to proceed with either of these, because then we need to negotiate the actual agreement and contract and bring that forward for action.
So just to recap here, sounds like what you're saying is that if we choose to go with offer A and things don't pan out as we had hoped and the applicant had hoped, that we would know this sometime
next year,
perhaps by July, June, and then that would be the end of that, and then the property is still ours, and we could decide to put it up for sale again. I mean, okay, just wanted to make sure. That would be, I would guess, the worst case scenario. We're not out any money in any of this process. No. Okay. Questions, other questions, board members? I don't see any, unless the applicant wanted to offer something that we hadn't heard. I want to give you the opportunity. A down payment check would be nice if you want to just throw that out here.
My name is Al Bogna. I'm Vice President of Real Estate for Carnegie Management and Development out of Cleveland, Ohio. To my left is Rustam Corey, who is a Vice President of New Business Development for Carnegie Management.
Welcome.
We're a mixed platform user. I mean, we have a lot of experience in this area because in addition to operating governmental facilities, which include about 11 clinics for the VA, FBI, IRS, Social Security, you also have a few million square foot of retail real estate located in the three-state market of New York, Ohio, and Indiana. About a year ago, we delivered a facility to the VA in Springfield, Missouri. 2 months ago, we delivered a facility to the VA in Rochester, New York. We're currently under construction on 2 VA facilities in Charleston, South Carolina, and Myrtle Beach. And we're in the process of responding to an RLP for Fredericksburg, Virginia. Our portfolio goes all the way from 30,000 square feet on a VA-related facility on the west side of Cleveland to a 360,000 square foot, $110 million project, full surgical hospital in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So we have a lot of experience in these matters. I mean, this is a competitive bid process. We do have a lot of background in this. To put it in perspective, in Charleston, South Carolina, we were on a single site with 7 other bidders, and we did win this contract. Now, we are right in the fact that this is funded based on governmental fiscal years. We anticipate that this RLP will be issued late fourth quarter of this year. And to put it in perspective, when they issue an RLP, it's just not a matter that they say, hey, we want a proposal on this site. What they do is issue about a 4-inch thick binder printed on both sides of specifications that are required for the facility. In response to that, 60 days later, what we do deliver to the VA is in excess of a 1,000-page proposal that responds to all their needs, and that is how this is assessed on both a technical and on a financial merit. Put in perspective, facility we're proposing for this piece of land is 140 5,000 square feet, most probably on 2 levels, 750 parking spaces, and I would say probably a net value of $60 to $70 million. This award will, in all likelihood, be made by the end of September 2020 for a delivery, I think Russ is going to say, 2 years thereafter. But once we do receive the award, which is part of the contract that we've submitted to Volusia County, we are required to show the fact that we do have control of the land. We must close within 90 days thereafter and fund it.
Questions, Ms. Cuthbert?
Just to clarify, will be your bid.
This will be our bid.
This one piece of property.
Yes.
And how you're going to bid. I didn't know if it was just maybe 2 or 3 for them to look at, but this is your only one.
When we do the market analysis, we look at a market, look at viable pieces of ground, and there are requirements in terms of local amenity, no FEMA flood zones, size of property, proximity to services. I mean, to put it in perspective, when we take requested sites to be submitted in a certain delineated area in the Daytona Beach area, we looked at potentially 35 or 40 locations. Then we submitted 7 sites for the VA's consideration, and this was one of 2 sites that got the most positive feedback. And we feel that there's a good symbiosis with the technical college next door, because in looking at their website, there is a lot of curricula that will cross over to the VA's administration's use. And really in this overall site, we are buying the entire 78 acres. What is required for this VA procurement is probably more in the line of 20 to 24, but we would utilize that remaining land to work with the school and the surrounding development that goes in place sometime in the future.
Okay, is this purpose supposed to be an office building, or will it be a clinic, hospital?
What it is classified as is a CBOC, a community-based outpatient clinic, so it is an outpatient clinic. There is not overnight stays. One of the things we do when we come into the market and we do our analysis, we talk to people in the community. And part of the feedback that Rustam and I got when we came down here and started talking to people, there are a lot of veterans in this market. If they're looking for services, it may take them potentially 2 to 4 weeks to get identified for services. And when they do identify those services, they may have up to a 45 to 60-minute drive to obtain those services. Right now the VA is in a national process because of the scope of the veterans that do need service in this country. They are rebuilding their entire clinic system to move forward and bring it up to what is 21st century standards. Now, this is a 20-year federally backed lease, so it does have that solidity to it. And plus, because it is a 20-year federally backed lease, there is substantially more control to it. So it is a minimum of a 20-year lease and a 20-year habitation of this building.
Well, I do know there's very little around our area for our veterans, especially when we're a county that has a lot of retirees. And there are veterans in this room who would have, I'm sure, have great use of it. So I'm in favor.
Yeah, and one of the things we do, for lack of a better term, real estate in the country, because we work across a lot of different platforms, is for profit. But what we do with our veterans facilities is we do provide state-of-the-art, and where a lot of people will hone in on acquiring the smallest amount of land necessary to develop a facility. We do tend to overbuy our real estate because our owner, if you look at the age group of our management team, we are in that demographic where, we do have that experience with the military. We will provide them things such as walking trails and healing gardens and a lot of amenities that a lot of other developers will not include in the product they deliver to the government just because of the financial structure of it.
And based on what Ms. Morrissey said, this piece of property does offer that, those walking trails. So thank you.
Yes. Any other questions, comments? All right, then we thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you for the information. It's valuable to us.
Okay, and one of the things that I would add to this, on behalf of the Volusia County School Board system, this is something we would work forward to. I mean, as Sarah Lee said, this does have to go into zoning for development. We'd be willing to work with, Daytona Beach to get the appropriate zoning for our use moving forward, or any other use that you would need in this property to make it more marketable in the event that we do not get the award.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. So, Ms. Morrissey, back to you.
You're next.
Anything
Zoning.
else?
Rezoning.
Oh, are we done with this one?
Well, I'm asking you. Did you have
I'm done.
anything?
I'm done.
I have
further?
one
Okay.
question.
Mr. Cologne.
Did the other offer B know that we would be talking about this
Yes.
today, and we're given the opportunity?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Clone. I didn't hear exactly
Did
what
the
you said.
other offer B know that we would be speaking about this today, and was also given the opportunity to be
Yes.
here?
Thank you for asking that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Okay.
So,
We can't say.
did I get any direction?
We can't.
Well, they can't really vote because
Right.
it's a workshop. However, what I would say is the superintendent for the next couple of hours, is I would like you to pursue offer A until
Okay.
such time as you're directed otherwise.
Okay.
I agree to that.
All right.
We support veterans.
All right, now, Ms.
Yes.
Morrissey,
Thank you very much.
No pressure.
Appreciate it.
you can.
Yes, please. Okay. All right.
All right,
Thank you.
we're on our last item.
This is our last item.
6.01.
Yes.
Everyone's favorite topic.
No, they've been looking forward to it.
Rezoning.
I'd like to think that we saved the best for last.
Oh.
It's all in my area.
Yes, it is. We would like to review with this board the work that we have done to date on preparing for a rezoning that is associated with the new construction at George Marks and the overcrowding at Citrus Grove. And then our very last slide is something that we have not discussed before, but an idea that Eric Kozilski, who's here with me and is our planning specialist.
Welcome.
One of the things that Eric is responsible for is working with our local governments in terms of reviewing new development and its impact on our schools, and also working with our internal team as well as our external consultant on our enrollment projections. So the last idea, it's really an idea at this point, comes out of Eric's work with those activities. All right. So I am. Eric's going to take the lead on this presentation.
All right.
And I'm here to assist.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, my name is Eric Kozilski. I'm the planning specialist here for Volusia County Schools. As Sarah Lee had said, we have done work previously. This for the movement from Citrus Grove to George Marks. This was actually planned in the first half cent. George Marks was identified as a replacement, so students were moved over to that to Citrus Grove that were planned to be moved back in the future once we did the replacement. So we're just continuing that work. We have done mail-outs to all of the addresses in the proposed zone, and we have set up presentations at both the schools for public input and to show them what we had planned. Actually, the area that we're talking about now is a little bit smaller than what was previously planned, but we would like to make incremental changes rather than one huge change and then see that we have to dial something back.
You ready?
Yep. Okay.
You want this one or the next one?
This one's good. On this table, I have two tables here of Citrus Grove Elementary and George Marks Elementary, and showing the trend in enrollments for the past 5 years. I think it's 16, 17?
4 years.
Okay. And now you can see it's fairly stable. It fluctuates, but it's been fairly stable. And you'll see that Citrus Grove is at about 120% of the permanent design capacity, which is higher than what we would like. Our accepted standard is 115%, and that's before we start making adjustments. At George Marks, you'll see there's a slight, well, it may be a little bit more than slight. There's been a drop in the enrollments at George Marks, but part of that is getting prepared for this construction that we're working on right now. It is under construction now. Okay. So what I did when I do this is actually kind of like you guys had heard from the Census Bureau, or well, heard about the census earlier. We have our own little census tracts, essentially, that we look at in demographics and try and see where they could fit before we would bring anything forward. Now, in this area, we have approximately 170 to 200 students that would be trending in that area that would go to George Marks, or that currently go to Citrus Grove, that would be in that.
So the area in question is bounded by State Road 11, State Road 17, and 15A. And it's that triangular area that's in yellow. And as Eric mentioned, it was previously zoned to George Marks before Citrus Grove opened, and was sent to Citrus Grove as part of Citrus Grove's opening.
As the table on the far right shows you, we are actually planning on grandfathering students in the higher grades and their siblings.
That would be a recommendation to the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the way I was thinking, that would be the best way to phase this in.
When we had our community meetings at the two schools, but primarily at Citrus Grove because the students are affected families primarily there. At that time, the kindergarten class that was starting that year, assuming we stay on schedule with George Marks, which we are, they will be third graders next year, okay? And so what we were suggesting to our families to help them with this transition is that we would recommend that the rising fourth and fifth graders, okay, next year's fourth, next year's fifth graders, and then their siblings, the fourth and fifth will recommend to you that they be grandfathered, and then any sibling that's attached to one of them can be approved on a variance to stay at Citrus Grove.
Yeah.
All right? As part of that discussion, we also invited affected families to move to George Marks now, if they wished. We had 7 families and/or 7 students avail themselves of that opportunity. I will say that one of the issues that impacted that decision was transportation, because we were not providing transportation to George Marks, and there is a relatively large area within this triangle that is low income and is very dependent on our student transportation system, and I do know just from people who were at that meeting that they chose to stay at Citrus Grove because of our provision of transportation. Yeah.
So what I did for these tables here was try and show you what it would look like if today everything was in place for this move. So at the top, I estimated 800 capacity because we're not exactly sure how program is going to change George Marks's capacity, but it's being built at a higher level. And then on the first, at the very top, I have the 78 students out of that 160 to 200. Right, I'm using specifically this year's numbers, so it will be 78 and 178. But it shows what it would look like the first year, and then as the group of kids that were grandfathered out, aged out, what it would look like on the very bottom. So we're going from 120% to approximately 110 on Citrus Grove in the first year, but it would be down in the 90s by the third year from what we expect.
Got it.
And I just want to qualify that these numbers that are being put forward as they impact George Marks do not reflect the movement of our multi-VE students who are currently at Stark, and that is also something that we are planning for at George Marks.
Right, this is only general education because Citrus Grove and George Marks do not currently have.
Question, Ms. Haynes?
Okay, so.
Is this all in your district? Is this your?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Go for it.
Is that okay? All right, so I understand the triangle where they were at George Marks, you moved them to Citrus Grove, now we're gonna move them back to George Marks because we're gonna have a new facility and it's gonna be state-of-the-art and larger. Okay, now we go over to Stark. We're gonna move multi-VE out of Stark is what we're proposing.
I'm sorry.
We were requested to do that. Stark could be a walk-in school if it were not for the program.
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that, again, from a facility standpoint, to make the appropriate accommodations. It is a growing program. Just since we have started George Marks, we've gone from 2 to 4 units there. So we were asked to provide for the facility, the appropriate rooms.
So we have 4 units of multi-VE currently at Stark. Do we know approximately how many students?
I do not have that for you today, but I could get that.
But we're going to move all 4 units out of Stark to George Marks.
I'm going.
That's what you're going. That could be a recommendation or a proposal.
I'll say it this way. We are working with our ESE department to plan for that.
So, in the plans for George Marks, have we already taken into account the needs of our multi-VE students so that when we are setting aside which classrooms will be used, we have made sure that the toileting facilities, all of the things they're going to need are there. So this is not just like an add-on that we didn't consider that now we have to make a change. Have we communicated with the multi-VE parents and families as we have done with the group in the yellow?
I cannot answer that because the way we've done this historically is through our ESE department and they handle the communications. So I can't answer that question.
So, Mr. Egner, if you don't mind, since this is impacting, now it's 3 of my schools impacted for this change. I would just I'd like to know some things. I'm not in any way at all opposed. It's just, this is the first time I had heard that the multi-VE units from Stark were going to go to George Marks. And I'm not opposed to that, especially if we're building the facilities that will best meet the needs of those students. But, having, even on the earlier slide, we see that we've done mail outs and everything and I know you've done community things so that the Citrus Grove families going back to George Marks know what's going on. I just don't want to all of a sudden hear that our ESE families with some of our most fragile children have been left out of the communication loop.
Certainly. I'll find out what ESE has done, if anything, and then we'll proceed with same types of communications and things that we've
I was going
contemplated
to
with
ask
other
Ms.
student groups.
Morrissey, anytime you put this type of program in, there's a lot of state requirements about the just other ancillary playground, everything. There's a whole another element to it. But I'm sure you are aware of that.
Right. And one thing, going to Ms. Haynes' concern, and I can't speak to the age distribution or anything, but depending on how many children and grade and whatnot, there may need to be a transition plan there. And we've done that before with some of the other program relocations.
Yes, because if we're going to, have a transition plan just for the 4th and 5th graders, at Citrus Grove where they could choose to stay versus going to George Marks, we have to offer the families with the students in multi-VE the same considerations and everything, because if they've been there and this is what they're used to, making a transition like this could be difficult. And I think we also need to take a clear look at what we're doing with the supports now for George Marks, because if George Marks is now bringing in for growing or full units of multi-VE, have we put the things in place we need there for them to be successful?
Yeah, and normally the teachers at Stark would transfer to Citrus Grove. And Mr. Colon had a question, I think, yes?
Yeah, I have a question on the last slide, and so it's not specific to this, so this is my first time going through this, and I'm not familiar with this area, so it's really a general question. So we're looking at, if I see this correctly, what we're saying is that George Marks will eventually be at what capacity if we just stuck with the triangle with that change?
You mean enrollment?
Enrollment, yes.
Yes, it would grow over time, because what we're suggesting is a grandfathering of the 4th and 5th grade and their siblings through that process, so that they could stay at Citrus Grove for that time period. But after that time period is over, there's approximately 170 elementary students coming out of there as a trend.
And again, I'm not asking specific to these schools because I don't have I'm not familiar with the area, I don't know. And so is the aim that they will both be at a similar capacity when time comes?
The aim is to try and balance.
Ideally, yes. However, the state had us keep 2 buildings at George Marks that originally were not scheduled to be kept, and those have classrooms in it. So we are anticipating that George Marks, from a pure capacity calculation, again, kind of depends on program, George Marks will be slightly larger in capacity than our typical and standard elementary school.
And so with this rezoning, in other words, this will probably be revisited every year for the next 5 years in order to get that balance. I mean, am I seeing this wrong? Because I guess my question is, why wouldn't we rezone to get it, and I get the grandfathering part, to get it where they're not busting at the seams?
Well, okay, so.
And we can take this all, like I said, this is I'm not asking just on the premise of this school versus, because it still seems like Citrus Grove is going to be busting at the seams. And I appreciate what you said about the other two buildings, because those count in the square footage, but may not necessarily be buildings that we want to fully utilize, so it'll be smaller. And then the other question I have, and again, very general, do we take into consideration, and the only word I can think of is the brain drain. In other words, do we look at what impact that's going to have? For example, if we move EBD to, they're not tested, are they?
No, it's multi-VE.
Multi-VE, so they're not tested.
They are tested,
They are
but lots
tested.
of times it's alternative.
Alternative, okay, thank you. And so, again, just in a general way, do we look at that information to determine that we are not adversely changing the population of a school, and to ensure that, because, and again, I'm not familiar with this area. I've been to the school once. I went straight to the library and came right out to the parking lot. But in general, one community may say, well, heck, they stopped on this road because this community is here. And again, I'm not speaking of this. I'm not familiar with this area.
Pertaining to your first part of the question, we would rather do smaller changes and see that it's working than do a large change and then have to roll something back, in terms of populations.
Ms. Haynes?
So part of what's happened here is George Marks was a very old school. And when they opened Citrus Grove, this yellow triangle, so to speak, was already George Marks. But they put it over to Citrus Grove because George Marks was bursting at the seams in a very old building.
We had like 20 portables there back then.
And so that was to alleviate the stress that George Marks was already under. So if you look, you've got Woodland Boulevard there. So what they're doing, and I kind of look at that when I'm thinking about DeLand, it's the schools that are on the east side of Woodland Boulevard and the schools that are on the west side of Woodland Boulevard. And so we took these kids in the yellow and we crossed Woodland Boulevard. So we were like putting them back onto the side they live on to go to the school. So it's actually a good thing. It was just, I didn't know about the multi-VE, but a lot of the multi-VE are bussed into Stark because that's the multi-VE site. And so if we're going to build facilities that are going to meet the needs of those students, then that's a very positive thing.
And another thing is this little triangle, from a feeder pattern standpoint, this triangle, it's as you described it, Ms. Haynes, at 17, right? The area that's on the east side goes to DeLand Middle and DeLand High, and the area that's on the west goes to Southwestern and DeLand High. This little triangle moving back will have the appropriate feeder pattern again, because the triangle goes to DeLand Middle.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Morrissey, we're up against the clock here, and we got another meeting at 1:30, so I think we're maybe a little
I would
late.
like to just jump ahead, because our intent on that was to let you know what we've been working on, and that you will be seeing the George Marks in your 2020 calendar year. We'll be going back to the families. I'd like Eric, especially for Ms. Haynes.
Because I brought up the apartments, and I am telling you, they are close.
Yes,
so this is about that.
Can we, Mr. Chair, can we table this maybe for another workshop? I mean, I think it's worth the discussion. This is news to me too. And so if this is not imminent on us right now, and so if we table it, we can have the necessary discussions, get the necessary answers, and come back and discuss it.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Okay,
Board members, you have any comments?
I'm fine, but I need you, because this involves you and I need you to drive down 1792 coming out of DeBerry towards Sanford, and when you get to this, right before the sunrail, look on the left-hand side and see how quickly, because I brought this up last March. I said, hey, and everybody's like, what apartments, condos, whatever are you talking about? And I said, well, DeBerry's approved it.
I haven't been that way in a long time. Yeah.
Okay,
I haven't either.
they're built, guys.
So
I mean, they are.
Are they built?
And the idea here is to be more proactive and not do this after children have arrived.
Right, because they're close. And the other thing that everybody needs to be aware of, because it's been on the DeBerry Council minutes, is possibility of 700 additional homes coming in 2 phases in DeBerry also, that is being talked about. In phase 1, they're saying 300 to 350, and then the remaining in phase 2, and that is on the council's thing. You know, that's what they've been talking about at the council right now.
Well, then let's do this. Do we have a workshop scheduled December the 10th? Is it? Can we get this? Would that be okay with you all? Yeah. It seems like this deserves more time for sure.
And I think
Ms. Cuthbert?
Ms. Morrissey needs to get this answered, correct? You need a direction from us sooner than later, correct?
I think we need to look at what all's coming into DeBerry, because this is only a snapshot of it, and look at the timeline of when the home piece is gonna start too, because ultimately my concern has been, even if we rezone between Enterprise and DeBerry, where half of DeBerry already goes to Enterprise as it is, I don't think with what all's coming in, even with rezoning, either school's going to be able to hold it.
And that's my concern.
We're going to go back to double classrooms at DeBerry, which is where we were until we opened Manatee.
Okay, then, so Ms. Morrissey, we'll go ahead and schedule this board, is that okay? For December the 10th, and now our workshop, we are adjourned. Thank you.